in groundwater across the country. On the right-hand side, the map that you get to see is arsenic hazard map based on the cutoff of 10 parts per billion, and on that we calculated that almost 250 million or more people are under threat. It doesn't mean that everybody is sick. Most of us are not actually, but we're exposed. So what it says is that there's a big possibility that we would get sick soon enough. So this is the scenario of groundwater arsenic in India as of today. Next please. Now, what are the controls? Well, different people talk about different things. I'll just show you a couple of scenarios. The first thing that I believe are the primary controls of groundwater is the geology, the arsenic in the groundwater. And there is something called the hydrostratigraphy, which is literally the subsurface architecture of the sediments, which kind of determines where you find arsenic and why not. Just while coming, I was talking with John Duga on why you don't have arsenic in the very southern parts of West Bengal. The reason is the geologic formations, the sediment characters. What are the sources of the sediments? Arsenic is not falling from the sky; it's coming from the subsurface. So definitely from the sediments and the rocks. So understanding the composition of the sediments and the rocks, understanding their subsurficial extent is extremely important. And to do that, we have used over the last 20 years, we have integrated more than 5,000 what we call lithologs or geological logs to understand. This is only for the Bengal Basin, density delta, to define the subsurface architecture of the aquifer structures, both India and Bangladesh, to delineate where the arsenic is. Next, please. What are the triggers? What are the mechanisms? What do you get to see? Next, please. Go. Yeah. So people talk about very local issues. Now I I was introduced to. I have worked across the planet, and I have worked in several geologic provinces where there is arsenic problem. And what I have gathered, and more specifically to the Indian context, there are not one mechanism that results to arsenic pollution. Yes, the predominant one is redox transformation. Our next speaker, Prashut Bhattacharya, proposed that in 1996. But beyond that, from 1996 till today, we have realized that it is just not one mechanism, but a combination of mechanisms. So yes, redox dominant, but you also do have ionic competition, counter-ion effects, and pH-based desorptions. And depending on where you are in this planet, what kind of geologic structure you are looking at, you would have variations. In West Bengal, yes, you have redox transformation is the primary driver, but you move a little further to the west, pH-based desorption is the driver. Next, please. And then the human influence. And and I suppose this is a never-ending debate, and people talk about, okay, we caused it or nature caused it. So my one-line answer is nature caused it. But why the arsenic problem is such a problem? Why we didn't know it before 1983? The reason is human. Because it was not until human, back in the 1970s, went in and tried to find it out and start using the groundwater to that extent. And since 1970s till today, the number of wells that we have installed over the country, as well as in West Bengal, and the consequent cost of that, and of course Bangladesh, is humongous. And just from a social science perspective, I think the loss and damage is more than a few $100 billion. Anyway, the lesson that we have learned is that yes, arsenic was there in some places. But over the years, because of the pumping mostly for agricultural purposes, it has spread the arsenic in various parts of the country and also the Bengal Basin. Next, please. And how does it spread? Well, still today, okay, we ran our experiment just pre-COVID and we still kind of crunching the numbers, but still today, there is no direct measurement of is the pumping spreading of the arsenic or not, to my knowledge. What we best have is mathematical models. And these mathematical models, the one that I'm showing you from an area which is about 100 kilometers north of here, Anahat, where we demonstrated that if you have natural groundwater flow, which is taking more than 250 years to reach a depth. If you have pumping going on, this movement of the arsenic can come down to as low as 5 years. So a well that is installed today and is safe from arsenic, if pumping is going on not just in that well but in the surrounding for irrigation purposes, the arsenic which was not there can come there in 5 years. This is because of the hydraulics that happens in the subsurface. Next please. So what we learn, and how do we use this for our purpose? Now, this is a photograph or combination of photograph from our former student Ashish Vishwa's work, PhD work, where he working with Prashant Bhattacharya kind of identified this very simple but novel technique of understanding which are the wells which should be arsenic pointed. Now, there are all these fancy ways where you can take it to the lab, take it to a test kit, and see like whether there is arsenic in the groundwater or not. But he identified a very easy and novel way. Well, we also saw that if you have a tubewell, drinking water tubewell, mostly community, you do have a platform. Even at your home, there's a platform where you build it to hold the water and drain it out eventually. Now, most of the times, over the years, this platform would get a color. Now, what is this color? And most of us would ignore that, like, okay, that's a color. There's some, some dark kind of aggregated. But what actually is happening is a redox reaction that is happening on that platform. And what you're looking at are 3 colors here: the black, the red or brown, or the mixed colors. We have found statistically significant arsenic detection of more than 70% of the wells, more than 80% actually, in the red, brown, and the mixed color, which says that if you have the platform color to be red, brown, or mixed, you have a 80% chance that you have arsenic in that groundwater. Now, again, not everywhere in the world will have it, but at least for the Bengal area, this is the truth. Whereas if you do have a black color, which indicates that possibly you don't have arsenic, and like it shows in the pie chart, like only less than 25% of the wells do have arsenic in the wells which has black, platform. Now, what is the significance? Why should we have a color and why should we make any difference? Well, the reason is that this coloration is actually indicating some kind of redox transformation, which is actually a reflection of what exists in the subsurface. And that subsurface is determined by the color of the sediments. In a very, very crude way of saying it. This color of the sediments is actually reflected by the redox chemistry of the subsurface. If you have a dark colored sediment, it indicates that that sediment is rich by what we call iron 2 oxides. Yeah, iron 2 oxides. And when we have red color sediments, chances are, most of the times, these are what we call iron 3 oxides. Now, we know that there is a symbiotic kind of relationship between arsenic and iron. It's kind of cogenetic based on geological processes as well as geochemical methods, why arsenic and iron do have a relationship. And what it tells you that if you have these gray color sediments, chances are, because of the nature, the chemistry of these sediments, the arsenic would get released to the water, but not in the sediment. Whereas vice versa is more true for the red color sediments. So I'm showing you a cross section of the geology from an area of Chakda block, which is about 100 kilometers north of here. What you look at is this, the representation of this color. So the aquifer one, which is gray color sediments, would yield to this red color platform. Whereas, like the aquifer 2, which is kind of in the boundary between the red and the gray color sediment, would yield a mixed color. Whereas the red color sediments or red color aquifer 3 would yield black color platform color, which is indicative of manganese 4 oxides, the black color. Whereas the red color is iron 3 oxides. Yeah. So that's kind of the trigger tolerance. And this brings us back to where we started. What are the controls? Now, we talked about the very local scale controls, but is there a bigger picture? I showed you to begin with the arsenic distribution that we found from the database of Government of India, and I showed you the overall distribution. but is there a pattern? So let's look at the pattern, and what I'll show you is the pattern that actually governs the arsenic and the fluoride and the uranium and so on, all the geogenic pollution in a much larger framework, in a much larger global framework. Next, please. So what we're looking at the same map that I had showed you earlier. The left map is let's go back one second. The left map is the population in higher hazard areas from the same study that I showed you earlier from the application of artificial intelligence. And what you're looking at are the arsenic clusters, one in the northern and eastern part of the country, one in central part of the country, one in southern part of the country. What does that mean? Well, from a geologic perspective, I'm a student of geology. The northern part of the country and the eastern part of the country are actually regarded geologically the Himalayan forelands. What means the arsenic is coming from the Himalayas. There are very complicated geological processes that are, discernible in the Himalayas, where you can see like what are the source rocks of arsenic, and that actually is causing this distribution. The exact pattern are also dependent on the large-scale geologic features, of course, controlled minutely in our local scale. Next case. The next one, which is from the Gujarat to Madhya Pradesh, this arsenic is actually controlled by something, a very ancient geologic structure called the Central Indian Tectonic Zone, CITZ. Okay, and the presence of the Central Indian Tectonic Zone pre-Narmada River actually controlled the distribution of arsenic-dependent rocks in those areas, which at present causes the groundwater pollution. And the third one is in Karnataka, Telangana border. That you see here, this is the gold fields, the southern gold fields. And gold, again, is co-genetically linked with arsenic. So if you have gold mineralization in the area, there are high chances that you will have arsenic pollution in the area. So these are the three zones across India and across South Asia where you do find the arsenic. And these are the bigger reasons. So, like I said, the arsenic is coming from the Himalayan sources, and this is a model. This is a model, geologic model, how the arsenic possibly was released from the deep subsurface, 700 kilometers and deeper, when the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate collided more than 60 million years back, and that resulted to release of certain geological processes which raised the arsenic-laden magma in the pre-Himalayan context, and then Himalayan evolution took place. The arsenic eventually got transported to the Bengal and the northern and eastern Indian region. Next please. So where it all happened? Here. So geologically, we call it the womb of the Himalaya. It's called the Indus-Sanko-Sucha zone. So what I'm standing there is the Indus River at this junction where in the Indian plate and the Tibetan plate collided, resulting to what we know as the Himalaya as of today. So this is the place, and you can see the arsenic-induced rocks in the surrounding. That's the Janska River and the Indus River for context, where you have all these arsenic rocks that were released 60 million years back, and then on, which eventually, through a very complicated series of geological processes, got transported to sediments to become sediments where we are standing today in Kolkata and the eastern and northern part of the country. So the last slide. So when I do this kind of study, I try to, like I said, look at the much bigger picture as well as the most intricate one. So I believe, personally believe, that when you're talking about health, health cannot be illustrated without the water, and then water cannot be illustrated without the tectonics, which is much bigger framework of things. So this map that this cartoon that you are looking at is the geological processes that results to the earth that we live in, resulting to weathering and erosion and transport to bring out the aquifer sediments from which we are withdrawing the groundwater at the day. And there are biogeochemical processes that happens in these aquifers, and when we go in and pump this water out to the tube well, we get this arsenic-laden water. That would eventually be transported to a glass of water and for health. So what we are observing is just a dot in the bigger picture. And as a scientist, I believe, and as a way forward, I believe that it's extremely important to integrate this bigger picture. Why? Because if you are trying to go for some kind of remediation method, some kind of technique, most of the times we observe that the technique initially works, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, it doesn't work anymore. The reason being that we miss the bigger picture. And if we do, or at least aware of this bigger picture, we can constrain, we can design our remediation method in a much efficient way. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Mukherjee, for your excellent presentation based on your extensive study. If you have any short question or yeah, I must appreciate the technique that you have developed, seeing the platform, whether it is arsenic free, arsenic moderate, or high arsenic.
Well, I didn't, honestly, I didn't develop. Develop, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for such a informative talk. Elaborate what has been done. Now, you will be felicitated by Dr. Pritha Bhattacharya, the Organizing Secretary of 21st AICCC. Actually, it's also the Secretary of the Data Society.
Professor Mukherjee is Bhatnagar Award winner.
Now we have an online talk by Dr. Proshun Bhattacharya. Please.
Now I invite Dr. Proshun Bhattacharya. He will speak on groundwater pollution, digital transformation, and drinking water safety in online mode. Professor Bhattacharya is a chairperson, International Water Association, and also professor at KTH University, Sweden. He is part of NITI Aayog Global Team on Water and international specialist on arsenic issues in water. He was invited by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi ji, to brief him on water security issues of India.
Sorry.
He has signed an MOU with Government of West Bengal regarding finding solutions and management of arsenic in groundwater in West Bengal. He was awarded Save the Environment Award by INSA, New Delhi. He is well known amongst geologists and scientists dealing with water issues, including arsenic. He is involved in national water security policy planning of Bangladesh and several other nations. He is a member of Geological Society of USA, adjunct professor in Australian University. May I request Dr. Bhattacharya to speak on the subject.
Do you see my screen? Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Do you see my screen over there? Do you see my screen? Do you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, but do you see my screen?
Yeah. We can see your screen.
Great. Thank you, Arunaboda, for your nice presentation. Although it was a bit off track, I've worked with Government of India policy issues.
Dr. Bhattacharya, you please use the earphone.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, so I can hear you.
But does the audience hear me on the
Just a minute. Something happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
Last one was very clear. Just a minute. The audio system is not supporting. Just a minute, please. Now you please talk just for testing.
Yeah, hello. Do you hear me?
Okay, just again.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Do you hear me? Yeah.
Just a minute. No. Just a minute. Now you just.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Now it's fine. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Preetha and Bhattacharya for this kind invitation to participate in this very important conference. It is the 21st All India Congress on Genetics and Genomics, and of course, this International Conference of Experimental Toxicogenomics. And to understand this toxicogenomics, understanding the natural environment is very important. And that is one of the important reasons why I chose this topic, groundwater pollution and then digital transformation and understanding the system approach, which Abhijit and before Torit also presented in a broader way. And I'm sorry that I was on the panel today on the talk, but due to some traffic reasons, I was delayed. So I just mentioned to Rita that I'm getting delayed. So please proceed with the session so that we manage to end in time. So this work is actually done together with my co-authors here. We have Professor Kajimuddin Ahmed, and from University of Dhaka, Department of Geology, with whom, and you see on the right hand of the side, this is the KTH International Groundwater Arsenic Research Group, celebrating 25 years of our existence this year to 2024. So it's a long-term good collaboration with University of Dhaka and taking on board UNICEF Bangladesh, represented here by Jahid Alam and Nargis Akhtar, and then Sanjeev Sharma, his Swedish counterpart on Excel Dots AB in Stockholm. And then we also have the government representatives or the Mohammad Saifur Rahman and engineer Ishtamul Russell Khan together. And this is actually a long-term study which we are doing on the grassroots, working on system strengthening for safe drinking water service delivery system in Bangladesh. So before I move forward, I just wanted to highlight about what KTH Royal Institute of Technology is one of the important royal knowledge hubs for international cooperation, which is actually part of SDG 17 to start with. And then KTH, we have been working on different aspects of groundwater research, on especially focusing on groundwater quality. And since 1970, so it's long-term collaboration work which we are doing in the developing world, especially focusing on fluoride initially, then moving on to arsenic since 1995, and then salinity and other radiogenic contaminants like uranium, thorium, etc. And then we are also working in some areas in Costa Rica, for example, where we're looking into the geothermal energy. And now again, we are taking it up again, linking up with lithium, for example, in the lithium salt flats in Chile and Bolivia. And so basically our focus has always been to understand the hydrogeological processes in the aquifers, which leads to the mobility of contaminants and eventually developing different mitigation strategies. So I'm not going to, since we have very limited time, so we talk about the access of safe drinking water has been a basic human right and component, effective component of health protection. We have this global threats of different groundwater contamination. Just to see that the Global Groundwater Book, which Abhijit published 2020, is one of the excellent exposition of different aspects of groundwater threats and water supplies in different parts of the world. And then we have among them, what are the most important contaminants? What we see today is arsenic and fluoride and different other heavy metals, which are also called potentially toxic elements, PTEs, including different new radionuclides. And then this geogenic arsenic and fluoride, which surpasses all other contaminants which affect millions of people, especially when you talk about arsenic, it's 10 microgram per liter or 1.5 milligram per liter in the case of fluoride in the region. And of course, different significant health impacts, of which it has just shown a couple of figure diagrams on during his talk. Okay, now getting into the theme, why we are really bothering about the Sustainable Development Goals, which has been followed up with the Millennium Development Goals, as to make the development process in a more inclusive manner, not only in the developed world, but also including not only in the developing world, but also in the developed world together, so that we all are taken in the same train, so to say, so that we look into the different aspects, work in a more comprehensive and integrated manner and inclusive manner. And within this, we talk about water system, water block, which is the clean water and sanitation. Of course, water actually cuts across all these different sustainable development goals, which has been a priority agenda. So, and it's also important to note that the SDG 6 also has recognized the arsenic as one of the priority contaminants. So looking into the different water, as I mentioned, is in the core of sustainable development. So we need to understand what the different aspects. 6.1 is, of course, drinking water. And when we talk about drinking water, we take integrately the sanitation and hygiene aspects into the because, when we talk about sanitation and hygiene, we always talk about microbial contamination, which is, I mean, one of the largest challenge globally in entire in water systems. When you talk about drinking water, we have water scarcity on one side, and then we also have water dependency on the various ecosystem where we live, and so on. So just say, so eventually what we really need to implement different types of understandings, and what is most importantly talked about is drinking water safety planning. We need technology, we need capacity building, data monitoring and accountability framework, which of course needs open access, or the OA, and of course partnership is widely needed in this context. So this is one of the diagrams which was classically, I think it was WHO 2005, which brought in this picture of framework for safe drinking water. We talk about health-based targets, we talk about, and then what are the water safety planning module here. It talks about system assessment, monitoring, management, and communication and surveillance. So, I mean, in terms of system assessment, we are pretty much comfortable, but in terms of understanding the system, but monitoring, management, and communication, we are still lacking behind substantially. But now with what we talked about, when you talk about this different artificial and intelligence and monitoring tools, and we talk about, and so we are actually broadening up this block slowly, and that's what I'm going to talk in the coming talk in the future, in the next part of my talk here. So when we talk about water safety, Abhijit has very rightly talked about catchments. We talk about the Ganges River system tracing up to right from the Kashmir region, and then coming up to the source water quality. And then here, the major question is that what water we are actually receiving in the Ganges Delta, for example, Ganges Brahmaputra Meghna Delta in a wider perspective in the region. And then once we have this water, we need to have some treatment control. And then we also need to have protection of distribution. This is from the water users perspective, and water distributors perspective, protection of distribution system. And that's what we have in a safe drinking water, which means water from the source to the tap here. So, and that covers different risk management systems. So in this case, what we need to show here is that water sources, and then the key issues here include assessing the water quality, availability in terms of amount, quality and quantity both, and then ecological safety and different risk assessment. So the three basic blocks now can be simplified further is system assessment. It's like mathematical equations, not, and then effective operational monitoring, and then finally management. So when we talk about operational monitoring, so there we need to see that we need to find out different control measures whenever we see a potential risk. And that's one thing which is actually should be needed with the municipal water supply system, especially who are dealing with groundwater system from the source water which comes from the groundwater in general. So these are some of the key issues which one needs to deliver to understand and keep it in mind for future operations for the practitioners in general. And then when we talk about system assessment, different parts of the globe, this is a diagram from our publication in Science of the Total Environment way back in 2017, with together with Professor Yoshin Bunshu. And this actually talks about the geogenic contaminants at the core. We have different mobilization processes. We have natural mobilization right in the hydrosphere, atmosphere, and then through the water resources leading into the agricultural field. Tori talked about arsenic in rice and other crop systems. Now we have also arsenic in wheats and other things. What is it? Deo Piamondol had the excellent publication in Science of the Total Environment, I think 2 years back, on arsenic in wheat, especially from Bihar. So we know that these sort of contaminants are getting into our food stuff. So we need, and the whole thing is encapsulating our human health and well-being in a broader nutshell. So we need to have this water quality assessment, be it for drinking, be it for agricultural water needs, and different other environmental components. And now when we talk about risk assessment, even potential risk assessment from different volcanic sources, where due to we had a huge amount of lava flow in recently in Iceland, you have heard about. So those type of things. And then we also had in Spain. And so these are the potential ongoing tectonics and volcanogenic events which are happening, and that's what actually are giving us more concerns about environmental pollution problems. So next when we move forward here, so now something to talk about drinking water management. It's also equally important. Being a water scientist or these two are totally two different compartmentalized operators. One say when we talk about policy issues, so we need to understand, even as a scientist, we need to understand the different missions and policies. And so this was a very short discourse of different policies when we started off the national water policy way back in 1987, where it was really a very primitive. And then it was significant. It was mentioned about another important aspect of water is water quality. So water quality was not brought in upfront in that document. And then subsequent 2002 national water policy, where it was a bit more explicated, elaborated in how in when we talk about different categorization in terms of utilization, non-conventional methods of utilizations, water resource development management, integrated water resource development, etc. And then here the priority setting on drinking water, irrigation, hydropower, ecology, etc. So these are some of the strength. And then the drinking water issues came in point number 8, and adequate, where we talked about adequate water supplies. So these are some of the critical issues what we need to think about, and we need to work in the future so that we have our. And then in 2012 national water policy, Rashtriya Jal Niti, there we brought in water supply and sanitation as again in point which talked about there's a large disparity between the stipulation in water supply in urban and rural areas. And so these are some of the key issues. So, and then finally the 2016 national bill which came out, and that brought in more in detail in a much more comprehensive manner. So these are some of the key aspects of national policy making, and then where the conservation of water quality was much more was discussed in quite detail. So we need to understand these aspects in a more elaborate way. So what actually we are doing now, we worked with KTH UNICEF collaboration, and some of the key highlights were understanding these relevant policies, protocols, regulations for review and updating, and then strengthening capacity of the critical mass of low drillers and especially the local private sector, and then some of the integration of SASMET protocol and DPH UNICEF Arsenic Safe Village. I'll be detailed, and then supporting government of Bangladesh for establishing registration of and certification system for public and private drillers. So these are some of the key aspects, and collaboration of health department for patient management was some of the key issues. So overall, if we think about the drinking water safety, we need to have, in Bangladesh perspective or in the Asian perspective, we need to have mapping of local drillers to government program, training and distribute different tools, scaling up DPH and UNICEF, DPH and UNICEF Safe Union project, including the sustainable SASMIT tool, and then long-term monitoring system for observe the dynamics of groundwater over the period, and registration of local drillers countrywide, and database on this local drillers and water points, and delivering it to make a digital water platform. So I'll just skip. This is the overall map of what groundwater arsenic, sustainable mitigation of SASMIT, digitalization ASMITAS, and how the whole trajectory has been ongoing since 1998 onwards, increasing global for we are partly not only limiting ourselves to our region in Southeast Asia, but also in other parts of the world, and with leveraging these concepts in different parts and different contexts, depending on the type of the. So here, what we compare here in Bangladesh perspective, we talked about arsenic safe union concept, which was delivered by the government of Bangladesh UNICEF program in 2017. But prior to that, when we talked about our sustainable arsenic mitigation through the SIDA, Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency supported project called SASMIT, we actually worked on assessing groundwater situation, identifying safe aquifers, understanding the socioeconomic status and safe water access, and then prioritizing and optimizing sites through local consulting and enhancing private sector capacity here. So this is a nutshell of what the SASMIT strategy meant in its totality. We had the technical aspects, understanding the aquifer, the hydrogeology, the aquifer types, the different sediment colors, and then the understanding different hydrostratigraphic units for mobilizing water. We have been talking different words that one well is arsenic contaminated, other one is not in the same location. There has been several areas with such occurrences of different wells in one location. So where are those? So we try to pinpoint those things. And on the other side, we're also locating the social aspects, which means the access to safe water among the community. So unless we have this dynamism and dynamic understanding of this dynamic system, so to say, we cannot really provide safe water supply. And that is exactly what was also done by the Arsenic Safe Union project, where we talked about arsenic safe appropriate water supply technologies. They've also had an additional component of hygiene promotion and arsenic awareness. And then what we actually brought in was system strengthening by policy protocol review, collaboration and health, and capacity building of operational maintenance, safe water planning, and for sustainable planning and sustainability. And then we also have the digital application for capacity building, local drillers, and targeting different safe aquifers, and community mobilization and sanitation promotion, from a village to a union to a upazila and to a district. So these are the broader aspects which was actually brought in and scaled up during the whole process. So what we see here is one important thing. I mean, then what's this KTH? When we worked with this, we worked with different digital applications, system strengthening, understand, and so on. So this is the main dynamic flow system. What we see, policy guideline steers the drillers mapping and certification needs, and then that in practical operation, and then that brings in the capacity enhancement, not only for the local drillers, but also the DPHG, the technocrats and other who are actually managing from the government perspective. So these are some of the key highlights. So now I'm just showing you some of the nutshells. I mean, again, situation analysis we talked about drillers mapping, registration. Sorry. So here we see the situation analysis in the different areas. This is the data source from the MIX survey, multiple integrated cluster survey 2019, and which was actually published in 2021. So what we see that about 66.4% have arsenic concentration over 0.05 milligram per liter. And then we also have two different groups. One is arsenic less than 10 microgram per liter, and then arsenic more than 50 micrograms per liter, which is still the national drinking water guideline in Bangladesh on drinking water limit. And then this is some of the practical trends of drillers hub identification. And this is done on a GIS interactive map overlays of different different hubs. And here we see the different, I will just show you in a much more in a larger way. So here we have the different wells. So what you see here, and these are the different drillers intervention areas. So each of these local drillers normally work in these areas. So these are based on individual surveys, and there's all these survey was made through Google documents. And then based on that, we could identify different number of local drillers hub, and these are actually the sanitary hardware stores, which were the main targets of these local drillers. And that's from there we got how many local drillers are actually engaged in different districts or different upazilas in Bangladesh, and how many total number of individuals who are actually affiliated to this. It can happen that in some of these cases, many persons can be affiliated to several drillers hubs. So we need to, so then there is a multiplicity of the knowledge or the about or the capacities of these local drillers for understanding the aquifer geometry, understanding the arsenic limits, I mean the total, the safe water, the depths for interventions for drilling. So that is one of the main purpose when we talk about this, and this is again in a much more enlarged way to see how these local drillers have been given. Yeah. And then we talk about this is our knowledge about the sediment layers here. And then these are some of the aspects of the field operations of these local drillers. And the next aspect is monitoring and analysis. And here we talk about understanding the groundwater depth variations. And this is normally now it is done through digital data acquisition through different and then what we see, the digital water platform. So this is one thing where we bring in the aspects of data capture and data storage and management, and that's for making more precision analysis and that also leads to quality assurance of data, aquifer mapping, efficient groundwater resource management, and awareness. And then these are the basic broad backbone of the understanding of digital data capture. We take the DISNIC sensors, which are now used for capturing the sediment color, and it's analyzed in a typical web-based analytical engine, and it is compared with the different reference libraries. And this is again some sort of Munsell color coding based on the NIC sensor, and then also including the grain size analysis of the things, and then documentation. That is most important part. When we do an analysis, we see these sediment on the mats here, and from these mats, these are all digitized. So we have these different depths incorporated in this in the Asmitas, and this is replacing essentially the age-old analogous documentation to a more digital information, what we see here. And that is what the Asmitas field data capture. And that's one thing which we are actually moving on. And this has been practiced in our interventions right now. And then we talk about the different digital dashboard. And this is known as the GOB UNICEF digital dashboard, which is in operation, which is now being slowly inducted into the system. So essentially what we have the data capturing the field through Asmitas based on mobile application, automated generation and visualization of different board logs, and then which further leads to aquifer mapping concept in different manners in different regions. So I'm just closing down. And then so essentially this EP is called enhancing private sector capacity. So this is actually brought in the capacity development of the private sector for managing groundwater. And then we talk about the registration and certification system for the local drillers for understanding the overall the practice of installation of safe tube wells. And then the passbook is one of the key issues. And then some of the values. I'm just winding up, so we are already done through this. And so finally, I would like to invite you all to the two. And this is many of these aspects are covered in this volume, Arsenic in the Environment. And this is the document link. I've seen many of you have already received it, but looking forward to see you during the 9th International Congress and Exhibition on Arsenic in the Environment in Bhubaneswar, KIIT. Together, so looking forward to see you. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya, for your excellent presentation. You have highlighted pertinent issues relating to the water management, including water safety planning and digital transformation. This is very much important because of the fact in India, 85% of the rural populations are depending on the groundwater. And as we have a flagship program, Har Ghar Jal, that is Jal Jeevan Mission. So every houses will be connected with the pipe water supply. So this water safety planning and your presentation relating to digital transformation will be very much helpful for our country also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for conducting this session. And
now next, I'll be inviting for the panel discussion on groundwater contamination challenges a way forward. I request Mr. Jayanto Basu to moderate this particular session. I invite Dr. Nilendu Sharma, Professor Pradeep Shikdar, Professor Aniruddha Mukhopadhyay to come to the dais and take part in the panel discussion.
thank you, sir. When the stage gets ready, we'll have a brief introduction about the panelists. The panel will be moderated by Mr. Jayanto Basu. Mr. Basu is one of the frontline environment and climate correspondent and columnist in the country associated with the Telegraph newspaper Kolkata and also contributes to several major national and international media platforms. Basu has regularly covered international climate change meetings since 2009 and was also present in the 2022 Global Climate Meeting held in Dubai. Dr. Nilendu Sharma is MD, Fellow of National Academy of Dermatology, leading skin doctor in Kolkata, Assistant Professor of NRS Medical College, Editor of Asian Pigment Bulletin, Official Newsletter of ACPR, Deputy Editor of Indian Journal of Dermatology. Professor P.K. Shikdar is the professor in the Department of Environment Management, Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, member, State Expert Appraisal Committee, West Bengal, Fellow of West Bengal Academy of Sciences and Technology, former acting registrar of Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management. He has over 30 years of experience, more than 150 research articles, authored a book, Groundwater of West Bengal Assessment, Development and Management, and received a number of awards, including the Groundwater Science Excellence Award. Also, in the panel will be included Professor Dr. Aniruddha Mukhopadhyay, who is the Professor, Head Department of Environmental Science, University of Calcutta. He is a Fellow of West Bengal Academy of Sciences and Technology, International Society for the Waste Management, Air and Water, Indian Science Congress Association, Zoological Society in India, and he has also more than 150 publications in this field. His research interests include environmental biotechnology and toxicology. Please bear with us for about 5 minutes so that we can get the stage ready for the panel discussion. Thank you. All the poster presenters of poster numbers 1 to 17 are requested to move to the floor, to move to the room in the first floor where they have put up their posters for evaluation by the judges. The judges of today's poster session are Dr. Moumita Bandyopadhyay of Calcutta University and Dr. Snehashikta Swarnakar of CSR ISC. Thank you. মুর্শিদাবাদ এবং নদিয়া জেলা থেকে যারা এসেছেন তারা এই মিটিংটাতে পার্টিসিপেট করবে এবং আপনাদের যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে আপনারা নিশ্চয়ই প্রশ্ন করবেন এবং আমরা বাংলাতেই উত্তর দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করব। যারা এক্সপার্ট আছেন তারা উত্তর দেবেন এবং যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে প্লিজ ফিল ফ্রি, আপনারা সবাই প্রশ্ন করবেন। Hello. The present affiliation of Dr. Nilandu Sharma is Professor and Head. The present affiliations of Dr. Nilandu Sharma is Professor and Head of Malda Medical College. Thank you. Please, sir, proceed with the session.
We now start our panel discussion on groundwater contamination as well as certain issues relating to the environment. This session will be moderated by Jayanta Basu, eminent journalist. The panelists are Dr. Nilandu Sharma, Professor Pradeep Shikdar, and Professor Aniruddha Bhattacharya. Over to, Aniruddha Mukherjee, sorry. Over to Jayanta Basu.
Thank you, Honorable. And on the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of this panel, which I understand is a very important one. And as Honorable has just pointed out, that we thought that water issues are already there. We have heard 3 very important lectures in the last 1 hour. But along with the water, in today's world, when we talk about environment, we talk about climate change, nothing is disconnected. So what we have decided, I think you should agree with that. I think you'll be agreeing with that. That along with the water issues, as Honorable pointed out, we'll be also discussing some key issues on environment overall, and trying to find out the link, how the dots are being linked. So basically, what we are trying to do, I don't know how much time we had in your hand, I think 45 minutes or so, is that we will be talking about water issues, and we have a very, very eminent panel out here. And along with that, Professor Abhijit Mukherjee is right out there. Other experts are out there, so I think they will be also participating as and when some issues will be coming up. We'll be talking about the water. We'll be talking about air pollution and biodiversity, climate change a bit, climate change and waste management. So we'll be trying to link all those things. So without further ado, what I'm trying to look at, and I'll be requesting the very eminent panelists to look at, and as because we have health expert out here. So also request you to link the health issues and health agendas along with this. You all know that just I think about a month back we have our climate conference COP28 in Dubai, and that has been a historical one in the sense that very key decisions have been taken out there, and the decisions are. There are a lot of decisions, but most importantly, the decision about discontinuing with fossil fuel from 2050. So this is just not a climatic decision. What I'm trying to drive at, this has a huge implication on all the environmental issues, including water. I think Abhijit was just mentioning about how climate change impacts water at the most. So let us start with the water, because we have been discussing with the water and the issues. I think let us have a sense of continuation. We have Professor Pradeep Shikdar out here, one of the foremost scientists in India and here about the groundwater issues. And if we can, though we may talk about the international issues and the national issues, but I think it's better also to focus on our state as far as possible, because we also seek the solution. No point in just repeating the problems without going to the solution. So let me start with Pradeep. On the groundwater issues, what do you feel are the major issues of groundwater in West Bengal right now? And what do you feel should be done? There are a lot of things can be done, but there are short-term strategy, there can be long-term strategy. So overall, how you see this issue of groundwater in West Bengal, and how you see that we should progress?
Thank you, Jayanta.
Before I sorry to interrupt you, I request all the panelists to brief as far as possible so that we can come back and forth so that it can be more kind of interesting.
Okay. So thank you. At the outset, I'd like to thank the organizer, especially Peter, for inviting me to this International Congress. Now, talking about groundwater and its problem in West Bengal, as Abhijit said, and also Prashun also said, that it's basically, as I look, there are two problems. One is the falling groundwater level, and the other one, of course, is the pollution. You have arsenic pollution, you have fluoride pollution, you have nitrate pollution, manganese pollution, iron pollution. Then you have also coliform bacteria in groundwater, surface water and groundwater. So these are the basic areas, where the problems are there. Arsenic, everybody has talked about. A little bit about arsenic is that you need to understand the subsurface structure. You need to understand where you have the, and if you find that red clay in the subsurface, below that you're going to find brown sand or yellow sand, and if you put wells there, you're sure not to get any arsenic in groundwater. Even in a village level, you're going to find that one part of the village you have arsenic in groundwater, whereas in the other part you do not have arsenic in groundwater. It's basically because of the distribution of the last glacial maximum paleosol. Wherever you have the paleosol or the interfluvial sequence, you do not get arsenic, and where you have the channel sequence, where you have gray sand, you have arsenic in groundwater. This is the basic framework across Bengal, wherever I have worked. And talking about Kolkata also, in Kolkata, I think John told me to talk a bit of Kolkata. Kolkata, you all know the piezometric surface is falling. You have a groundwater trough which has formed. So, and the water level has gone down by more than 18, 19 meters in some parts of the city, and that could lead to ingress of some polluted water from all sides of the city, and also there could be a problem of land subsidence. Now again, in Kolkata also you have arsenic problem in a small part of the city, but that arsenic pollution is not geogenic in nature, as you say, in other parts of West Bengal and in Bengal Basin. It's basically anthropogenic origin. There was a factory in Behala which used to produce Paris green, and that Paris green, producing Paris green, they used to it arsenic, and the waste that was dumped in that factory premises over more than 20, 30 years. And that factory was closed in 1985, because this Paris green was banned worldwide in the middle 60s, but we still continue to produce this Paris green, which is basically a rodenticide. Now, the waste which was dumped contained arsenic. And if you look at this Tolly's Nala, all of you know Tolly's Nala, which is the Adi Ganga. And if you look at Adi Ganga, which is basically a late Pleistocene channel, the Adi Ganga is a late Pleistocene channel. And there, if you drill a hole on either side, I really do not know the extent of that, but there, it could be more than a kilometer. If you put a hole there or drill a hole, what you're going to find is a continuous sequence of gray sand. And if you look at the other part of city outside this interfluvial region of Adi Ganga, you're going to find the thick gray clay. And that clay is around, on an average, is 40 meters. And that clay is actually protecting the Kolkata's groundwater. Now here in Adi Ganga's channel and beyond that channel, you do not have this clay, and you do not have also the clay that is brown clay, that is the last glacial maximum paleosol, which is around formed around 20,000 years from today. And it's sand. So therefore, this factory was unfortunate. Unfortunately, if this factory was located any other place in Kolkata, Kolkata would not have witnessed this arsenic pollution. But unfortunately, that was placed on the channel of that Adi Ganga, and so therefore, with time, this waste which contained arsenic, with rain falling on it, that water seeped into or infiltrated, and there was nothing to stop that infiltration, and you had huge pumping going on around that area, and so therefore the vertical rate of flow of water into the aquifer has gone down. The other part of the story is, so therefore you get arsenic in that part. Beyond that area, you're not going to get any arsenic in Kolkata city. Now, apart from that problem of arsenic in this part of the city where you have this Adi Ganga, you have a waste water problem also. I think all of you have known this Tolly's Nala. You have seen how it has been, ill-treated over so many past decades, with huge amount of sewage being dumped, dumped from the market waste being dumped. So what has happened actually, the wastewater has infiltrated down into the aquifer. And what I have found actually, from my research of myself and my students, that this wastewater has gone down at a depth of around 130. Imagine, what that wastewater has gone, because there was no protective layer. So the arsenic went down, the wastewater has gone down. So that area, the Tolly's Nala, needs to be cleaned. Immediately, the water should flow. The water should be allowed to flow. The tidal water should come in and go out with ease. Okay. I think I should stop over here.
No, I think very important. I think you have flagged off a very key issue. But when I'll be coming back to, I just kind of flag off these questions now later. Two issues. One is that you just mentioned that a huge amount of withdrawal has added to the problem. Now we are going to have a major project of construction and development in Alipur area. It's called Alipur Rejuvenation Project. It's just beside the Adi Ganga. So what kind of implication it can have on the whole scenario? And what are your, as an expert or scientist, your kind of suggestion to the planners, how they should go about organizing the water that will be required to feed those huge construction and huge areas? That will come to you later. And second, also now there's an ongoing project of World Bank of rejuvenation of Adi-Ganga. There's about 500 crore being pumped in, and I think a French consultant company is working on that under the supervision of Kolkata Municipal Corporation. So what are your suggestions about to them, if there are any, about kind of containing this arsenic flow in that terrain? So that are two questions. I'll come to you. But before that, there are two other issues, or I should say the issue of extreme importance is air pollution. This is the time when air pollution hogs the headlines all over, more so in Kolkata and the city like Delhi. Kolkata is definitely behind Delhi when it comes to pollution, but it is not much less. So Kolkata is one of the most polluted city. Our average PM 2.5 PM10 are much higher than the national limit. Forget about the WHO limit. So also Kolkata is one of the metro cities which is having least amount of plantation and biodiversity, which added to the air pollution impact. We have Professor Mukherjee with us, been working on these issues for a long time. So I'll ask Anantudha to say about these issues of air pollution and biodiversity. What is your thinking about these issues right now in Kolkata and the surrounding, and what are your kind of broad solutions you can kind of suggest?
Thank you. Why Kolkata? Why not West Bengal? So far as the biodiversity is concerned, we know that there are three types of diversity: the alpha, beta, and gamma diversity. That is the genetic diversity, species diversity, and the ecosystem diversity. And West Bengal is a unique place because we have huge number of species in West Bengal. And in West Bengal, as we remember that the Botanical Survey of India, that was formed in West Bengal in the year 1895. And in the year 1916, the Zoological Survey of India was formed in West Bengal, in Calcutta itself, just to measure the number of species in India. Now in the year 2024, if you ask me how many species we have in our state or how many species we have in our country, I'll not be able to tell you what is the exact number because we do not know. Maybe around 1 lakh known species are there in our country, so far as the animals are concerned, and maybe around 47 to 50,000 species of plants are there in our country. And the third component of biodiversity is a microbe. There are many microbes we do not know, and microbes they know most of the solutions of environment, because people say that microbes can be used for the degradation of the plastic materials. Microbes can be used for many other purposes in environment, in solving the environmental problems. And many of the institutes like NIT, IIT, and the universities, they are working in that particular direction. That is one aspect. The second aspect is there are many plants, like there are many plants. They can absorb different heavy metals and they can remediate different pollution related matters. Suppose that is a farm that can be used for the phytoremediation of arsenic. We were talking about arsenic, right? So so far as this East Kolkata wetland is concerned, that is a Ramsar site that was declared in the year 2002. Many of the plants are found over there, and those plants are able to absorb the heavy metals. But if we lose those wetlands, if we lose those aquatic plants, those plants will not be able to absorb this particular salts in future. So these are the aspects, because in environment, because you were talking about environment is basically a relational subject. So all the components are somehow or other connected to each other. So we have to know it. We have to know it holistically, and we have to apply and we have to rely upon the science behind it, because there is science behind the environment. And the second aspect, which you were telling, that is the air pollution. And air pollution is a major issue in our country, particularly in the urban centers. And during the winters, particularly in cities like Delhi, in cities like Kolkata, it is going to be a very big issue in our country. From needy source apportionment study, we have seen that so far as Kolkata is concerned, three major aspects are very important in Kolkata. One is the construction. They are contributing in a huge amount, the suspended particulate matter. The second one is, the vehicles, the transports. That is the second. And the third one is the roadside eateries. And roadside eateries also contributing in a major way in West Bengal. And particularly in Delhi, stubble burning, that's a major factor. So those factors are there. We know what are the sources, and we know what are the consequences of air pollution. But we have to understand what can be the remedial measures, what we can do to solve the problem. We have laws, regulations in our country. We know in the year 1986 we had our Environment Protection Act. In the year 1981 we had our Air Pollution Act, and in the year 2002 we had our Biodiversity Act to protect our biodiversity resources. But we are losing the diversity, biological diversity of the country. And so far as the biodiversity is concerned, we have 8.1% of the global biodiversity present in our country. In a way, we are very rich in biodiversity. So this biodiversity will be crucial so far as the protection of environmental components are concerned. And we have to see in that particular direction. But the air pollution aspect, particularly in West Bengal, the AQI, the air quality index, it is going up in particularly some centers in areas like Durgapur, Asansol, in Haldia, in Kolkata, and not only that, in some of the areas we have worked together in Newtown area. The microclimatic conditions are being changed due to some other factors, and they are telling that it's not due to global warming or some other factors like that. Maybe the building materials we are using, and the city geometry is being changed. We are losing our the greenery. We are losing our wetland resources. So those are the factors. So when we look at the urban planning, when we look at the urbanization of this city, we have to be very careful so far as the protection of natural resources in the urban centers are concerned, particularly in the peri-urban areas of the city.
Thank you, Anuruddha. I think you have flagged up very important points. Before I go over to Dr. Sharma for understanding the implication of these issues on health, on public health, and also Anuruddha is there, we'll be talking about the West. I just would like to add a couple of things which just Anuruddha has said, is about the air pollution. I was just looking at the data, and it's very interesting. Urban areas are already affected, we all know that. But even the peri-urban and the rural areas are no less affected. It's very interesting to know that we have a national clean air program, we call it NCAP, from 2019, which has already pumped in around 9,600 crores to improve the air quality of around 133 cities, which are called so-called non-attainment cities, meaning they are consistently below par. But the data is showing, and we are having the data with us, it shows that forget about the rest of India. In West Bengal, it is West Bengal Pollution Control Board's own data showing that out of all the districts in West Bengal, apart from Kalimpong, all the districts are over the normal pollution. They're all polluted vis-a-vis the national limit. And very interestingly, the most polluted is not Kolkata. Most polluted is Bardhaman, followed by Bankura. Kolkata is way down the ladder. Definitely the impact is Kolkata is higher, as Professor Mukherjee was pointing out, because of the density, the huge amount of population we have. But if you look at the gross value of the pollution as being kind of calculated, there are urban rural areas are no better. So definitely the time has come up when we should start talking about the rural environment improvement program along with the urban environment program. Those are the takeaways which we are having from the data. Before going further, and I think Anuruddha will also add to that, let me go to Professor Sharma, Dr. Sharma, to talk about the health implication, how you see because if it doesn't impact me, why should I bother? If the arsenic doesn't impact me, why should I bother? If the air pollution doesn't impact me, why should I bother? I bother because it affects my health. It affects the health of my elderly parents. It affects the health of my children. That's why we are bothered. We're all being bothered. So where do we stand on health point of view? We know the global burden of disease has very clearly shown how its impacts are very high in India, including West Bengal. Your view?
Thank you. And thanks to Pritha also for inviting me, because I am the odd one here. I'm normally a doctor, specialist. You all are doing research work, and we basically do patient service throughout our day and service. For the last 20 years, I've been working with Dr. Giri and for some arsenic work. What I have seen that just a neglected weather or climatic condition, if not properly just corrected, can cause. Right now, I'm posted in Malda, and even now, so many patients come with multiple skin cancers. And we all know that mitigation program have been started way back, and there are so many arsenic-treated plants there. But still now, new patients are coming, and it is very pity to see that these patients are having so many complications, like multiple, more than 100 skin cancer in a single patient. They have kidney problems, they have heart problems, they have gangrene of the finger toes, they have neurological problems, and still at 22 to 24, also getting the similar prevalence of patients there. So obviously, this climatic poisoning through different modes have health implications. And myself, being a dermatologist, mostly get skin patients, and we have I regularly see these patients. But in addition to these, I want to mention one more thing that we are discussing regarding the construction works and use of groundwater. At this particular point, I would like to speak in Bengali because there are some. Is there
particularly anybody in the audience who doesn't understand Bengali?
I can see some.
Okay, we'll try to mix it up. Bangla.
Particularly এই জায়গাটাকে আমি বাংলা ইচ্ছে করে বলতে চাই, বিকজ তার কারণটা হচ্ছে আমি জানি না কলকাতাতে কি অবস্থা। আমি হাওড়ায় থাকি এবং হাওড়া হুগলি থেকে মালদা মুর্শিদাবাদ বহু জায়গাতে আমাকে ট্রাভেল করতে হয়। বাট দ্য লাস্ট ফিউ ইয়ার্স আমরা দেখছি যে জলের সাপ্লাই নেই বলে জলের পাম্পিং স্টেশন বাড়িতে বসানো হচ্ছে, গ্যালনস জল সেখান থেকে তুলে বাড়ি বাড়ি সাপ্লাই দেওয়া হচ্ছে। তার কারণ কাছাকাছি কোনো সারফেস ওয়াটার সাপ্লাই সিস্টেম নেই, যেখানে আমরা বলে যাচ্ছি বা সবাই বলে যাচ্ছে যে গ্রাউন্ড ওয়াটার তোলাটা বারণ, অথচ একটা পাড়াতে এভরি 100 মিটারসে একটা করে নিউ তৈরি হচ্ছে, যেখান থেকে ডিপ টিউবওয়েল বসিয়ে বাড়ি থেকে সেগুলো বিক্রি করা হচ্ছে। এগুলোর এবং কি প্রচন্ড পরিমাণে ওয়েস্টেজ হয়, যখন হয়তো জলের ট্যাঙ্কটা ভর্তি হচ্ছে না, পাম্পটা চালু রয়েছে এবং রাস্তা ভেসে যাচ্ছে, নর্দমা তো নেই, রাস্তা ভেসে যাচ্ছে, নর্দমা ভেসে যাচ্ছে, শুধু জলের পাম্পটা বন্ধ হচ্ছে না। এগুলো সব ডিপ টিউবওয়েল। প্রথম কনস্ট্রাকশন হচ্ছে ফ্ল্যাট গুলো, শুধু সেই সময় নয়, যে ফ্ল্যাট গুলোর যেগুলো তৈরি হচ্ছে সেগুলোর পারমিশন পাওয়ার একটা ক্রাইটেরিয়া হচ্ছে তাদের নিজস্ব ডিপ টিউবওয়েল আছে। তৈরির সময় তো যা হলো, সেই ফ্ল্যাট গুলোতে 100-200 যতগুলো ফ্যামিলি থাকছে, প্রত্যেকের খাওয়ার জন্য বাইরের জলের সাপ্লাই থেকে তাদের নিজস্ব ডিপ টিউবওয়েল আছে কিনা সেটা হচ্ছে একটা সেই ফ্ল্যাটটাকে পারমিশন দেওয়ার একটা ক্রাইটেরিয়া। আমার মনে হয় এগুলো প্রত্যেকটা জিনিসকে কিন্তু আমাদের একটু অ্যাটেনশন দেওয়া।
আপনি আর্সেনিকোসিস পাচ্ছেন?
আর্সেনিকোসিস আমি এখন মালদাতে আছি।
মালদা তো আর্সেনিক প্রবল এলাকা তো।
মালদা আমি একসময় মুর্শিদাবাদে প্রচুর পেশেন্ট দেখতাম ডক্টর কর সাথে। এখন মালদাতে এসে দেখছি যে মুর্শিদাবাদের মতো সেই লেভেলের প্রিভ্যালেন্স দেখালো। আউটডোরে আমি তো ক্যাম্প করতে বাইরে যাচ্ছি না, আউটডোরে যারা আসে খুব লিমিটেড নাম্বার পেশেন্টসরাই আসে, কিন্তু তার মধ্যে বহু পেশেন্ট মানে মাসের মধ্যে বেশ কিছু পেশেন্ট আমরা কিন্তু আর্সেনিকের স্কিন ক্যান্সার নিয়ে চলে আসছে, সেরকম পেশেন্ট পাচ্ছি। স্কিন ক্যান্সার হয় খুব রেয়ারলি, তার আগে অনেক বেশি কমন থাকে তাদের স্কিন ম্যানিফেস্টেশন যেগুলো নিয়ে আসে, সেরকম ভালোই কিন্তু পাচ্ছি। আমি যেহেতু ডার্মাটোলজি স্পেশালিস্ট, আই ডোন্ট গেট দোজ পেশেন্টস।
Thank you. I think Dr. Sharma has pointed out very important thing. Another issue we would like to go over. We are trying to kind of share with you kind of a scan on the key agendas. This is waste management. আপনারা অনেকেই জানেন যে recently Government of India has done a study of how clean our cities, and unfortunately 10 of our cities in West Bengal within the 1 lakh plus population category have been ranked 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th to 3rd or 4th. And Howrah, which is most polluted, most unclean in that way, dirtiest city. Kolkata tar ekটু উপরে আছে, বিধাননগর আর সামনে আছে. There are certain criteria, and there are valid points from Government of West Bengal who are saying that all data are not being considered. So we can debate that how bad we are, but there's no doubt that we are bad. Somebody jokingly said me that West Bengal may be called West Bengal in some way, because if you our thoroughfares are now much cleaner than it was before, no doubt about that. আমরা কলকাতার রাস্তায় যদি হাঁটি, আগে যেরকম এদিকে সেদিকে ময়লা পড়ে থাকতো এখন পাবেন না। But if you enter deep into the world, into the narrow lanes and bylanes, you still find the West being done. আগের থেকে অবস্থার অনেকটা উন্নতি হয়েছে, কিন্তু এখনো if we have a benchmark, তার থেকে অনেকটা আমরা তলায়। এই সিচুয়েশনে West is a major issue. Purnabodha is one of the experts and also advising government, both state and center, how to go about it. So, Purnabodha, with this background, that West Bengal are having 10 dirtiest cities, and I was just looking at the data, it was not really very comfortable data. For example, এখানে যারা আছেন হয়তো অনেকেই বেশিরভাগই কলকাতার মানুষ, কলকাতা public toilet cleanliness is 0%. The scorecard is with me, 0% page, কলকাতা। কোনো জায়গায় ভালো করেছে, কোনো জায়গায় খারাপ করেছে। I understand there may be some ambiguity about the data and the reflection on the marks, but overall we have a situation. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, waste মানে আমাদের কঠিন বর্জ্য আর তরল বর্জ্য। সলিড ওয়েস্ট আমাদের রুল 2016 সেই মোতাবেক প্রত্যেককে মানে যারা আমরা জেনারেট করি ওয়েস্ট, সবাই জেনারেট করি ওয়েস্ট, we have to segregate organic, inorganic, and segregated waste need to be collected, need to be processed. Organic part would be converted to compost, or organic part would be utilized for generation of biogas, and from that we can generate electricity or compressed biogas, fuel আমরা generate করতে পারি। Otherwise, we have waste to energy, that is by incineration. We can generate also directly electricity, etc. The dry waste, that is the inorganic waste, that contains huge amount of recyclable materials, starting from paper, cardboard box, different types of plastic, PVC, high density polythene. We have glass, clothes, many articles which are recyclable, and certain parts of waste, dry waste, which are known as inert. Rule অনুযায়ী আমাকে segregated waste collection, door to door collection এবং processing করতে হবে, অর্থাৎ কনভার্সন যেগুলো বললাম। মেইন অবজেক্টিভ হচ্ছে রিসোর্স রিকভারি। Sustainability of the project means we have to earn revenue out of this waste, because we consider this waste as well. Compost আমরা তৈরি করব, বিক্রি করব, আমরা recyclable materials বিক্রি করব, we will earn money. এটা তো হচ্ছে, কিন্তু এটা অর্গানাইজড সিস্টেমে। সমস্যাটা কোথায় হচ্ছে? সমস্যাটা হচ্ছে আমাদের জায়গা নেই। মিউনিসিপ্যালিটিতে সলিড ওয়েস্টের প্রসেসিং এর জন্য জায়গা নেই। যে জায়গাটা ছিল সে তার নাম হচ্ছে ট্রেঞ্চিং গ্রাউন্ড, তাকে অনেকে লোকালি বলতো ভাগাড়, যেখানে পাহাড়ের মতো ওয়েস্ট জমেছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে লিগাসি ওয়েস্ট। একটা লিগাসি ওয়েস্ট ধাপাতে ওয়ার্ল্ড ব্যাংকের ফান্ডিং এ ক্যাপিং করা হয়েছিল, একটা প্রসেস। পাহাড় হয়ে গেলে তাকে আমরা ক্যাপিং করে ফাইনাল করে দিই, কিন্তু তাতে আমাদের জমিটা ফিরে পাই না। অনারেবল ন্যাশনাল গ্রিন ট্রাইব্যুনাল ভারতবর্ষের এই চিত্র দেখে যেখানে জমি পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না, তারা লিগ্যাসি ওয়েস্টের বায়োমাইনিং এর কথা বলবো। সমস্ত স্টেট আরম্ভ করেছে, ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলও আমরা বিভিন্ন শহরে যেখানে পুরনো ওয়েস্ট গুলো ছিল তার বায়োমাইনিং করা হচ্ছে। ইট ইজ এ প্রসেস বাই হুইচ উই ক্যান জেনারেট সার্টেন অ্যামাউন্ট অফ মেটেরিয়ালস হুইচ উইল বি রিসাইকেবল। সেখান থেকেও রেভিনিউ পাওয়া যাবে। এই প্রসেসটা চলছে, তার থেকে জমি আমাদের বার করে আনা হচ্ছে। কিন্তু সমস্যার একটা হচ্ছে পাবলিক এডুকেশনও আছে। যেই ময়লা ফেলা হচ্ছে তাদের এই আগের চিত্র, ধাপা যেমন একটা ডিকশনারিতে নাম উঠে গেছে, ধাপা মানে হচ্ছে একটা আনকন্ট্রোল ওপেন ডাম্পিং। আজকে ছবিটা পাল্টে গেছে, মানুষের সেই চেতনাটা নেই, তারা সেখানে অপোজ করছে, ময়লা ফেলতে দিচ্ছে না, এই প্রবলেম হচ্ছে। ফলে নম্বর না পাওয়ার একটা প্রধান কারণ হচ্ছে প্রসেসিং এ আমরা অনেকটা পিছিয়ে আছি। কলকাতা শহরে আমাদের 4000 মেট্রিক টন মিউনিসিপাল সলিড ওয়েস্ট জেনারেট হয় এভরিডে। 500 মেট্রিক টনের কম্পোস্ট প্ল্যান্ট আছে ধাপাতে, চলছে। আমাদের 500 মেট্রিক টন কনস্ট্রাকশন এন্ড ডিমলিশন ওয়েস্টের প্রসেসিং প্ল্যান্ট তৈরি হয়েছে নিউ টাউন ছাড়িয়ে আর একটু দূরে রাজারহাট এলাকায়। এছাড়া আমাদের প্লাস্টিক ওয়েস্টের প্রসেসিং প্ল্যান্ট চালু হয়েছে, একটা বায়োমিথেনেশন প্ল্যান্টও চালু হয়েছে এখানে ধাপাতে, এগুলো চলছে। কিন্তু এটা ঠিকই যে 100% আমরা প্রসেসিং করিনি। আমি সম্প্রতি জাস্ট কয়েকদিন আগে বিভিন্ন মিউনিসিপ্যালিটি স্টার্টিং ফ্রম বৈদ্যবাটি, রিষড়া, চাঁপদানি, তারপরে হচ্ছে কোন্নগর, এগুলো দেখে এসেছি। এখানে কিন্তু কম্পোস্টিং হচ্ছে না যে না, অর্থাৎ ডাটা এইগুলো ফিড হয়তো ঠিক মতো হয়নি, যার জন্য অ্যাসেসমেন্টটা হয়নি। ইট ইজ নট দ্যাট যে একেবারেই হচ্ছে না, তবে আমি এই কথা বলতেই পারি যে প্রসেসিংটা এখানে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের ক্ষেত্রে শুরু হয়েছে। আগামী হয়তো 1 বছরের মধ্যে চিত্রটা পাল্টাবে, কারণ এছাড়া আমাদের কোনো গত্যন্তর নেই।
থ্যাংক ইউ পূর্ণবোধা। আই থিঙ্ক আমরা একটা ছবি পেলাম যে পশ্চিমবঙ্গে ওয়েস্ট ম্যানেজমেন্টের কোন জায়গায়। আমরা আশা করব যে আগের থেকে যেমন খানিকটা উন্নতি হয়েছে, আরো অনেকটা উন্নতি হবে, এবং আমাদেরকে এইরকম শেষের দিক থেকে ফার্স্ট হতে হবে না। এটা খুব একটা ভালো চিত্র নয় আমাদের কাছে, এবং শূন্য পাওয়াটা খুব ভালো চিত্র নয়। আই থিঙ্ক আমাদের হাতে সময় নিয়ে আমরা একটু দেরি করে শুরু করেছি, we have around 5 minutes time। তো আমি প্রত্যেকের কাছে আসবো কুইক কমেন্টের জন্য একটা, যে এভরিথিং ক্যানট বি ডান ওভারনাইট। সো যদি আমি জিজ্ঞাসা করি যদি যে ইন ওয়াটার সেক্টর, হোয়াট is your whatever specific one but দুটো বা একটা পয়েন্ট বা তিনটে পয়েন্ট যেটা আমরা ইমিডিয়েটলি the policy makers should think about, সেটা আমি এই প্রশ্নটা সবার কাছে আসবো। স্টার্টিং উইথ ইউ।
দুটো পয়েন্ট হচ্ছে হলো, the first one should be control groundwater withdrawal, and number 2 should be mass scale rooftop rainwater harvesting and artificial recharging into the groundwater body. And maybe a third one could be install piezometers in big housing societies and also in industries to measure monthly, or if not more frequently, the water level.
তিনটে পয়েন্টই হলো কোয়ান্টিটির ব্যাপার, কোয়ালিটির ব্যাপারে কিছু বলে।
If the three things are taken, the quality would surely improve.
Very good point. It's that we point from the diagram.
সমস্যাটা যেটা নিয়ে আমরা আলোচনা করলাম এতক্ষণ, কেন সমস্যাটা আছে, কি সমস্যাটা, তার ফলে কি হয়, এবং মোটামুটি ভাবে এটা থেকে উদ্ধার পাওয়ার রাস্তাটাও হয়তো থিওরিটিক্যালি আমাদের জানা আছে। কিন্তু আমি যেটা মনে করি, আমরা অনেক সময় মানে কেন হচ্ছে না, কি জন্য হচ্ছে না, এগুলো বলার আগে এগুলোর জন্য কিন্তু এনভায়রনমেন্টের যে কোনো প্রবলেম যদি আমরা সলভ করতে চাই, তাহলে যে আইন, নিয়ম, কানুন ইত্যাদি আছে যেগুলোকে বলা হয়, সেগুলোকে যদি ইমপ্লিমেন্ট না করা যায় এবং তাতে যদি মাস পার্টিসিপেশন না করা যায়, আমাদের পার্টিসিপেশন না থাকে, সাপোর্ট না থাকে, তাহলে কিন্তু ভেরি ডিফিকাল্ট। যেমন একটু আগে এই বর্জ্যের ব্যাপার কথা হলো, ওয়েস্টের ব্যাপারে। তো ওয়েস্ট যদি মানে আমাদের যদি পার্টিসিপেশন না থাকে, সমস্যাটা সমাধান হবে কি করে? স্যার যেটা বললেন একটু আগে গ্রাউন্ড ওয়াটারের ব্যাপারে, এটাও ঘটনা যে আমি যতটা জানি বোধহয় নিউ টাউনের বাড়ির ব্যাপারে একটা ওই বাইল আছে যে উপরে রুফটপ রেনোট গার্ডেন করা যায়, তাই না? আচ্ছা, রুফটপ রেনোট গার্ডেন যদি করা যায়, সেখানে যদি কেমিক্যাল ফার্টিলাইজার দেওয়া হয়, সেখানে যদি পেস্টিসাইড ব্যবহার করা হয়, আর সেখানে যদি আমি বলি গ্রাউন্ড ওয়াটার রিচার্জিং করতে হবে, তাহলে তো আমি উপরের পৃষ্ঠটাকে মাটির তলে ঢুকিয়ে দিলাম, এটাও তো আছে। সুতরাং এইটা সার্বিকভাবে না ভাবলে কিন্তু এই প্রবলেম সলভ হওয়া খুব ডিফিকাল্ট। একটু আগে স্যার বলছিলেন যে রাস্তায় উনি দেখেছেন মালদাতে জল পড়ে যাচ্ছে। আমি মালদায় কেন, কলকাতা শহরই তো অনেক জায়গায় দেখি, এবং নির্বিবাদে তার প্রতি মানুষ চলে যাচ্ছে, জল নষ্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে। শুধু জল কেন, জল, ইলেকট্রিসিটি, আমাদের বিভিন্ন জায়গায় আমরা কিভাবে পরিবেশের সমস্ত ব্যাপারে এই ঘটনাগুলো ঘটে চলেছে চোখের সামনে, সেটা নিয়ে আমাদের ভাবার দরকার আছে। এবং এই ব্যাপারে কিন্তু বিধি নিষেধ যারা করেন, তারা কিন্তু একেবারেই ভাবনা চিন্তা করে মানে না করে করেছেন এমনও নয়, কিন্তু সেইটার যখন রূপায়ণের ব্যাপার আছে, ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশনের ব্যাপার আছে, তখনই বোধহয় একটু কোনো জায়গায় বোধহয় আমাদের খাতটা রয়ে যায়। এবং সেই ব্যাপারে কিন্তু আমি বলছি যে আমাদেরও কোনো জায়গায় কিন্তু একটা ভূমিকা আছে। মিশন লাইফ বলে একটা ব্যাপার চালু হয়েছে, সেখানে আমাদের যে কর্তব্য, আমরা কি করতে পারি, সেটাও কিন্তু করার ব্যাপার আছে। আমি ধরা যাক এই সেমিনার, আমরা এরকম সেমিনার করি, এই যে একটা জলের বোতল রয়েছে আমাদের, আমি যদি এই জলের বোতলটাকে ছোট করতাম, তাহলে তো আমার জলটা অনেক কম নষ্ট হতো, আমরা জলটা তো রেখেই চলে যাবো, তাই না? আমরা যদি এই জলের বোতলে, প্লাস্টিকের বোতলের বদলে যদি অন্য একটা কাঁচের বোতল ব্যবহার করতাম, যেটা আমরা আগে করতাম, আমাদের অভ্যেসের এই বদলটা হওয়ার জন্য কিন্তু বহু রকমের সমস্যাটা আমরা বাড়িয়ে তুলতাম। একটু ভাবার দরকার, এটা এত বড় এবং এত আবেগের একটা জায়গা, কারণ এনভায়রনমেন্টে মোস্ট অফ দ্য ইস্যুস আর বেসিক্যালি ইমোশনাল, most of the solutions are technical, and most of the decisions are coming from the technocrats, either the technocrats or the decision makers. সুতরাং এইখানে দাঁড়িয়ে পুরো আলোচনাটা চলে যায় এমন একটা জায়গায় গিয়ে, যখন সমস্যাগুলো সমাজের সামনে দাঁড়িয়ে পড়ে, তখন আমরা বলি না, সমাজটা অনেক বড়, মানুষের সংখ্যা অনেক বেশি। সত্যিই তো, এত বেশি সংখ্যক মানুষ একটা ছোট্ট জায়গার মধ্যে থাকে, ফুটফল যদি বেশি হয়, কার্বন ফুটপ্রিন্টের পরিমাণ যদি বাড়তে থাকে, তাহলে সেখানে সমস্যা থাকবেই। এই সমস্যার সমাধান হবে কি করে? শনিবার রোববার তো কলকাতায় নোংরা থাকে না, যেভাবে অন্য দিনগুলো নোংরা হয়। আজকে কলকাতায় গ্রিন কাভার থাকবে কি করে? কারণ কলকাতায় ছোটবেলায় আমরা যে দেখতাম, আপনারা যদি একটু খেয়াল করে দেখেন, আপনি কালী পুজোর সময় আমরা দেওয়ালি পোকা বলতাম, বেশ কয়েক বছর ধরে আমরা দেখছি, এবছর বোধহয় একটু করে বেশি দেখলাম আমরা, বেশ কয়েকবার। এবং আমরা বোধহয় একটা টিভিতে প্রোগ্রামও করেছিলাম, যে প্রোগ্রামের বিষয়ই ছিল কেন কলকাতায় শ্যামা পোকা দেখতে পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না। নানা ধরনের পোকামাকড় আসতো, নানা ধরনের মাছ আমরা বাজারে দেখতাম, আমরা বলি মাছ পাওয়া যায় না, কারণ এই মাছটা পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না। আপনারা জানেন যে জীবনানন্দ দাশ খুব বিখ্যাত কবি, তার লেখা একটা লেখা ছিল সরপুটিদের গান, তিনি একটা সরপুটি বলতে মাছের উল্লেখ করেছিলেন। আপনাদের যদি আজ থেকে 50 বছর পরে আমরা এগিয়ে যাই, সেই সময়টা সরপুটি আপনি দেখতে পাবেন না, কারণ সেই জলাটাই একটা। শুধু আমাদের যে কালচারাল অ্যালিনেশন যেটা হচ্ছে, আমরা জলা হারিয়ে ফেলছি, পুকুর হারিয়ে ফেলছি, নদী হারিয়ে ফেলছি। সুতরাং আমাদের কিন্তু এই আলোচনা একটা স্তর, আর একটা স্তর কিন্তু সত্যি সত্যি ওই যে রিসোর্স গুলো, সেই রিসোর্স গুলোকে বেঁধে রাখা, দিস ইজ ভেরি ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। এবং এটা কিন্তু একটা জাংশন, যে সময় কিন্তু আমরা কিন্তু এটা সত্যি, এটা এই আলোচনাটাকে কিন্তু আরো বেশি জায়গায়, বড় জায়গায় নিয়ে যাওয়া দরকার। এবং সরকার, সাধারণ মানুষ, আমরা যারা রিসার্চ করেন, সবাই মিলে এই প্রচেষ্টা করতে হবে, সবাইকে এটার মধ্যে যুক্ত হতে হবে। নট দ্যাট এই ঠান্ডা ঘরের মধ্যে বসে আমরা 50 জন মিলে আলোচনা করলাম। এটা নীরেন্দ্রনাথ চক্রবর্তী বলে কবি আছেন, তার 100 বছর পালিত হয়েছিল, এবং তার একটা লাইন আমার মনে পড়ছে, সেটা বলি আমি শেষ করব। দুটো লাইন বলছি। উনি বলেছেন যে সব সবুজ কি শুধুই বনে বনে, খানিক বনের মধ্যে থাকে, খানিক থাকে মনে। মানে বনের মধ্যে শুধু সবুজ থাকে না, মানুষের মনে যদি ওই সবুজ বা লাভ ফর দ্য এনভায়রনমেন্ট, লাভ আর প্রোটেকশন ফর দ্য এনভায়রনমেন্ট, এই জায়গাটা না জাগ্রত করতে পারি, ছোট বাচ্চাদের মধ্যে যদি এই ভাবনাটা না নিয়ে যেতে পারি, স্কুল কলেজের বাচ্চাদের মধ্যে যদি না নিয়ে যেতে পারি, সাধারণ মানুষের মধ্যে যদি এই ভাবনা না যায়, কোনোদিন এই এনভায়রনমেন্টাল প্রবলেম সার্বিকভাবে সমাধান কিন্তু করাটা খুব একটা অসম্ভব জায়গায় চলে যাবে। এবং আমাদের ইমিডিয়েটলি সবাইকে এটা নিয়ে কিন্তু খুব প্রায়োরিটি বেসিসে এটা নিয়ে ভাবা দরকার আছে। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Yes, single line, intention. We have a lot of research. We have so many things. We lack in intention of doing good things. We do need intention for betterment. That's it.
আমি যেহেতু সলিড ওয়েস্ট ম্যানেজমেন্টের কথা বলেছিলাম, আমার মনে হয় যে 50% রেসপন্সিবিলিটি হচ্ছে মিউনিসিপ্যালিটি বা কর্পোরেশনের, আর 50% হচ্ছে সাধারণ মানুষ বা সিটিজেনদের। তার জন্য যেটা দরকার প্রপার অ্যাওয়ারনেস এবং মোটিভেশন, তার সঙ্গে বিহেভিয়ারিয়াল চেঞ্জটা দরকার আছে। আমি এনভায়রনমেন্টাল এথিক্স এর কথা বলছি, সেটা আরেকটু বেশি যাতে জাগরিত হয়। আর ফাইনালি আমার বক্তব্য এনভায়রনমেন্টাল ডিসিপ্লিনটা একটু বেশি মাত্রায়।
আমরা সবার কথাই শুনলাম। আমি শেষে এটাই বলি যে দুটো জিনিস বেরিয়ে এলো, এবং সেটা খুব রকেট সায়েন্স নয়, আমরা আগে শুনি কখনো এমনও নয়। একটা হচ্ছে সবাইকে যে যার দায়িত্বটা পালন করতে হবে। সরকারের দায়িত্ব পালন করুন। কেউ তাদের কাছে এমন কোনো জিজ্ঞাসা বা এমন কোনো চাহিদা করছেন না যেটা তারা করতে পারবেন না। আইনসভায়, বিধানসভা, পার্লামেন্ট, লোকসভা সব জায়গায় বসে তারা যে আইনগুলো করেছেন, সেই আইনগুলো তারা প্রয়োগ করবে। অ্যাজ সিম্পল এজ দিস, নাথিং মোর দ্যান দ্যাট। তারা নিজেরাই যে আইনগুলো করেছেন সেই আইনগুলো তারা পালন করবে একদিক। পাশাপাশি সাধারণ মানুষ, এটাও ঠিক কথা, একা সরকার মানে তো একটা মানুষ, সাধারণ মানুষও কিন্তু তাদের যে দায়িত্ব সেটা পালন করতে পারে। তবে এখানে আমার নিজের একটা ভাবনা শেয়ার করি, বিভিন্ন জায়গায় দেশে বিদেশে দেখার পর, যে সরকার যদি রাস্তা দেখান, এটা আমাদের এখানেও, এটা আমরা এই এক্সাম্পলটা আমরা ব্যবহার করি যে মেট্রো রেলের মধ্যে কিন্তু ময়লা কম হয়। কেননা মেট্রো রেলের মধ্যে যেহেতু মেট্রো রেল রেগুলেটরি পার্টটাকে একটু জোরদার করে, আপনি ওখানে যদি কোনো ঠোঙা ফেলেন, প্যাকেট ফেলেন, প্লাস্টিক ফেলেন, তারা একটা আপনাকে ধরবে বা কিছু একটা বলবে, আপনি ফেলেন না। তাহলে আমাদের দেশে যেহেতু 140 কোটির দেশ, আমাদের এখানে অ্যাওয়ারনেস যে কথাটা, তার আগে আমি একটা শব্দ সবসময় যোগ করার কথা বলি, এটা হচ্ছে কম্পালসিভ অ্যাওয়ারনেস। অর্থাৎ অ্যাওয়ারনেসটাকে কখনো কখনো একটু চিরতার জলের মতো, স্টেরয়েডের মতো, অ্যান্টিবায়োটিকের মতো খাইয়ে দিতে হবে। আমরা নিজেরা অ্যাওয়্যার হব, আর ওই অ্যাওয়ারনেস উইদাউট অ্যাকশন মেক্স নাথিং। আমি ডক্টর শর্মা যেটা বললেন যে যা আমরা আইন, আপনি যদি ভারতের পরিবেশ আইন দেখেন, আমি অন্য কাজের জন্য, একটা বড় কাজের জন্য দেখছিলাম, ভারতের পরিবেশ আইন ইজ ওয়ান অফ দ্য বেস্ট ইন দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড। কারণ আমরা চিরকাল খুব ভালো নোট বানাতে পারি, সারা পৃথিবীতে যেখানে যেখানে যেমন পরিবেশ আইনগুলো হয়েছে সেগুলো আমরা দেখে আমরা খুব ভালো আইন বানিয়েছি, নো ডাউট অ্যাবাউট দ্যাট। কিন্তু when it comes down to the ground to implement, সেখানে সেটা হচ্ছে না। তার একটা বড় কারণ হচ্ছে আমাদের পলিটিক্যাল স্ট্রাকচার। পলিটিক্যালি সারা পৃথিবীতেই পলিটিক্স আছে, পলিটিক্যাল ভায়োলেশন আছে, সবই আছে, কিন্তু আমাদের পলিটিক্স এর সঙ্গে এই এনভায়রনমেন্ট, বলি বা অন্য যে কোনো কিছুর ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন এমন ভাবে জড়িয়ে আছে যে সেই ডিসকানেক্টটা করা যায় না। দ্যাট ইজ দ্য চ্যালেঞ্জ, যে উই হ্যাভ টু ডিসকানেক্ট পলিটিক্স উইথ হোয়াট এভার নিডস টু বি ডান অন গ্রাউন্ড। আমি একটা ছোট্ট 30 সেকেন্ডের ঘটনা বলে শেষ করি। নয়েজ পলিউশন, আমরা সবাই জানি নয়েজ পলিউশন খুব বেশি হয়, এই নিয়ে প্রচুর কথাবার্তা হচ্ছে, কাগজে লেখা হচ্ছে, টিভিতে দেখছেন। কিন্তু আমি এনসিআরবি, ন্যাশনাল ক্রাইম ব্যুরো রিপোর্ট দেখছিলাম, যেটা লেটেস্ট ক্রাইম ব্যুরো রিপোর্ট, সেখানে দেখলাম যে পশ্চিমবঙ্গে নয়েজ পলিউশনের বিরুদ্ধে গত 1 বছরে নয়েজ পলিউশন অ্যাক্ট অনুযায়ী একটা মামলাও হয়নি। That's where the implementation comes, and that's where we lack. Thank you everybody for your time. Thank you.
এই সেশনটা আমার বহু আকাঙ্ক্ষিত একটা সেশন, কারণ প্রথম সেশনেও বলেছি যে আর্সেনিক নিয়ে আমরা এত কাজ করলেও বা গ্রাউন্ড ওয়াটার বা এনভায়রনমেন্টাল কোনো সমস্যা নিয়ে কাজ করলেও যতক্ষণ না সেই সলিউশনের জায়গাগুলো এগিয়ে আসে বা আমরা সবাই অ্যাওয়্যার হই, এই জায়গাটা কোনোদিনই সলিউশন আসবে না। আমাদের সবাইকে অ্যাওয়্যার হতে হবে। আমি ধন্যবাদ জানাই প্যানেলের সমস্ত স্পিকারকে, অর্ণব স্যার, জয়ন্ত দা, অনিরুদ্ধ দা, প্রদীপ দা এবং নীলেন্দু দা। আমরা একটু ফেলিসিটেশন ছোট্ট করে করব, কারণ আমি নীলাঞ্জনা দুজনে এখানে আছি, আমার ছাত্রছাত্রীরা, নীলাঞ্জনার ছাত্রছাত্রীরাও রয়েছে, এবং আমরা আর্সেনিকের যাত্রা শুরু করেছি স্যারের হাত ধরে, স্যারের শেখানো। তো স্যারকে দেখে নেব সবাই।
যারা চা খাবেন বাইরে গিয়ে একটু চা খেয়ে আসুন, কিন্তু এখানে আর আমরা গ্যাপ দিচ্ছি না, আমাদের পরের সেশনটা এখনই শুরু হবে।
We will not have tea break now due to lack of time. Tea is served outside. Those who want to can please go and come back very quickly. We will straight go to the next technical session, that is technical session 2, which will be chaired by Dr. Piyush Das of CSR ICB. He is the INSA Senior Scientist and Jason Bose National Fellow of working at ICB, and Dr. Rupa Bhadro. He is CSR Emeritus Scientist at the Infectious Diseases and Immunology Division of CSR ICB as well. Sirs, may I please request you to come up on stage and conduct the session, please.
Ranjana ji, can you hear us? Please say something.
Yeah, I can hear you. The voice is. Yeah, hello. Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Rita. How are you? So you can hear me now?
Yes, very clearly.
Jana Arya will be the speaker. Hello. Dr. Arya will speak on the gateway to drug discovery for rare diseases, GNE myopathy, a case study. Dr. Ranjana Arya is a faculty at School of Biotechnology, JNU since 2008. Her area of specialization is understanding pathomechanism and drug discovery for rare diseases, in particular, sialic acid metabolic disorders. She completed her PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University from School of Life Science in 2001, followed by postdoctoral experience at Harvard Medical School, Boston, USA, in the area of cell signaling of cell surface receptors in cancer cells. She further pursued her postdoctoral research associate at University of North Carolina, USA. After returning to India, she gained industry experience at Ranbaxy Research Laboratories in disease biology programs and drug development. She continued with her academic passion by joining JNU as a faculty in School of Biotechnology in 2008. She teaches cell biology and biochemistry to master students and has guided more than 8 PhD students. She established her lab in understanding the pathomechanism of rare genetic disorders, neuromuscular GNE myopathy associated with sialic acid metabolism. During last 15 years of research, she has developed a muscle cell-based model to identify potential drug candidates and developed assays to validate them. She has authored several papers in the International Journal of High Repute and got grants from various funding agencies. Hi, Dr. Ranjana.
Hello. Thank you so much for an elaborate introduction.
Now you can.
I'm really honored to be part of. I'm really honored to be part of this conference today, and I would like to thank all the organizers who had given me this opportunity to share my research work, what our lab has been doing with you all. And I apologize also that due to some engagements here at the university, I could not join offline mode. And again, I'm thankful to you for letting me present my work in this online platform. So, may I have my slides, please?
Ma'am, just a minute. Your session is being chaired by Dr. Piyush Das and Dr. Rupa Bhadra, both from CSIR ICB. Dr. Piyush Das is the INSA Senior Scientist and UCBOS National Fellow of working at ICB. Dr. Rupa Bhadra is the CSIR Emeritus Scientist of ICB in the Infectious Diseases and Immunology Division. From now on, the session will be taken over by the two chairs. Sir, would you please?
Cheers.
Ranjana ji, will you share?
Yeah. Yeah, I can share. Is it visible?
Yes.
So today I'm going to present some work which is related to gateway to drug discovery for GNE myopathy. And this is a rare, ultra rare disease. And why I say ultra rare? Because it affects extremely small percentage of the population. And the latest definition, even with respect to the rare diseases, has very recently been defined by the Orphan Rare Disease of India, that ORDI, which says that less than 1 in 5,000 comprises the rare disease definition. So these rare diseases, why it becomes important for us to understand and have some attention, because there are more than 7,000 diseases, even in rare diseases particularly, that have been identified. So it is not even yet that small a number which can be neglected. And more than 350 million people have been affected worldwide. So these diseases are characterized by a wide variety of symptoms and signs that vary not only from disease to disease, but also from patient to patients that are suffering from the same disease. So the problem is that due to low prevalence of this disease, the medical expertise is very rare, the knowledge is scarce, and even the care offerings are inadequate with the limited amount of research. We don't have that many doctors, we don't have that understanding about the pathomechanisms. So how to talk about the drug discovery? There are not even single clinical trial in India that is focusing particularly on the rare diseases. And we have 50% of the people affected here, if we talk about the statistics of the rare diseases, they are affected are children. And more than 80% of rare diseases, they are caused by faulty genes, underscoring the need for effective treatment rather than the preventive measures. So it is important that we have a good and an effective treatment for these rare diseases, and we need to have innovative therapies to treat these diseases. And also even the diagnosis is a big problem in these diseases. So if you look at what are the various challenges that are being faced here, these are actually scattered across the country. So even the medical expertise where we can collaborate and put together all the thoughts is very limited, and you have a scarce source, so the medical expertise, and it is hard to ascertain how to design a clinical trial because of limited information that is related to the natural history of the disease. So when we are talking about the basic research and its translation so that the drugs can reach to the societal medicine, we need to have a very robust system to have a new medicine being developed, and also that we talk about the diagnosis which would depend on the gene discovery. So sometimes, and here particularly, we need very, very innovative approaches and approaches to have a robust drug discovery pipeline and understanding the disease. So there are these challenges which are associated with the rare diseases, and the cost of developing a therapeutics compared to the size of the potential market is very low. So when we are saying that the cost becomes very high here, but the potential market, the size is low because the number of effective patients are less. So even if you go to the pharmaceutical companies, when they are talking about the profits, it is very limited margin, and in that case either the government or the NGOs, they have to pitch in to have a robust system of diagnosis as well as the drug development. So you have to, there is a difficulty in demonstrating a positive benefit risk ratio, which is due to the small individual population that is being affected and the development of the clinical trials. So what we have to do is, we don't do different things, but we do things differently. And how do we do that? We will see today what a little bit of the work that has been done in the lab. So the drug discovery path on rare diseases primarily focuses on not only the analysis but also the input from the patients. So we have suppose we have 2 or 3 misdiagnoses before being properly diagnosed, and only maybe 45% of the patients have all their costs covered by the insurance providers, and less than 50% of the patients, they suspect for a disease being received a satisfactory molecular diagnosis, because these are most of the inherited and the genetic disorders. So the misdiagnosis need to be avoided, and actually misdiagnosis takes a great toll on the patients, the physical, emotional, and the economical health. So the challenge is to have a clinical and phenotypic evaluation of the disease, so that, and how you can achieve that is by having a thorough genetic and genome analysis. So you need to have a good database, a sharing of the database about the information of the genotype and the genes where the mutations are, so that it can be shared and we can have a full consortium of the information being there among the rare diseases. So that will at least speed up initial genetic base and the diagnostic based problems that are associated. Second thing, what we can do is, when we are looking for the drug discovery path, primarily we focus on mainly the small effector molecules, because it is easier to make, the companies also benefit, and your screening becomes easier. You have good assays development, high throughput, and lead optimization, which is part of most of the pharmaceutical industries. So what we can do is, the other part of that is the biologics, where you are looking at hit and lead identification, and again lead optimization, which is leading to preclinical drug development followed by the clinical trials. But if you have some of the approved drugs which are already there, either FDA or the drugs which are already there, and you can repurpose them for some of these diseases, then it can be a fast way to identify some of the drug molecules here. So the disease that we are working on in the lab is a rare genetic neuromuscular disorder, which is named as GNE myopathy. And now there is a group of some of the other muscle disorders which are GNE related. So it is broadly called as GNE related myopathy. And it has been found worldwide, and even in India, there is a good large amount of patients being diagnosed with these mutations that are found in a sialic acid metabolic, biosynthetic gene, which is GNE. So GNE refers to an enzyme which is a bifunctional enzyme with an N-terminal epimerase and a C-terminal kinase domain. And this particular disease is characterized clinically by proximal and distal muscle weakness that is sparing the quadriceps. So here you see the patients usually have these defect in the muscles of the limbs and the hands, and you see eventually they become, as they move on, they become wheelchaired after the onset of the disease, maybe 12 to 14 years after the onset of the disease. So these are pathologically, if you look at these symptoms that are associated with the muscle atrophy, and pathologically the rimmed vacuoles are observed with lot of aggregation of the proteins, something like in Alzheimer's that you see beta amyloid and tau proteins, which are being found in the rimmed vacuoles of these muscle cells of anterior tibialis. So these are the pathological characteristics that are observed in the patients, and doctors can see, but usually it is quite late. So the early diagnosis depend on the genetic mutation identification, and sometimes the foot drop is the first sign that is observed in the patient where muscle weakness is observed. And this is autosomal recessive inheritance. Compound heterozygous and homozygous mutations have been observed in the whole population, but no null mutations have been identified. And when we are talking about the diagnosis, it is particularly the confirmation comes from the identification of biallelic mutations in this enzyme, particularly which is responsible for sialic acid biosynthesis. So far, there is no cure. Some of the sialic acid supplementation, it just slows the disease progression. There is no way to prevent it. The clinical trials have been there. Something like sialic acid is in Japan, sialic acid precursor MANAC study has been done in NIH. Immunoglobulins, which are heavily sialylated molecules, are also being tried. But again, this is not a permanent solution, and we are still looking for a good treatment for these diseases. So to tell you briefly, these sialic acids are actually 9-carbon acidic sugars, which are negatively charged and hydrophilic in nature, and they occupy the terminal position on cell surface glycoproteins and glycolipids. So they are involved in various cellular processes, which involve various signaling cascades, cell adhesion molecules, motility, macromolecular recognition, glycoprotein protection, and some of the intrinsic recognition. We know that they are host cell pathogen, which where we have these molecules being covered by sialic acid that help in the recognition. So they are playing variety of roles in the cell, and they are very, very critical molecules for cellular functions. So they are widely distributed in almost all the cells, and the highest role being in brains. And interestingly, this particular disease particularly affect only the skeletal muscle. So you lose the function of skeletal muscle without affecting any neurons or the neuronal function and other tissue cell types. We don't know why it is particularly being affected in the skeletal muscle. So if you look at the effect of these sialylation of the various protein, we know that the protein synthesis that is starting in the ER, and as the protein moves to the Golgi where the glycosylation part is taking, then the terminal addition of the sialic acid here does not take place due to the hyposialylation. And when the protein actually reaches, in a normal situation, you see a normal protein with the receptor with all the glycosylated linkages. But in here, in this particular disease, the last part where the addition of the sialic acid to take place in the modified protein, the post-translationally modified glycoprotein, it does not take place. So you have a hyposialylated protein at the cell surface, and what does it do? So the limitation first that is associated with the low amount of sialic acid is because of the mutations in this enzyme, which is known as GNE. It is UDP N-acetyl glucosamine epimerase and MANNAC kinase with the function, epimerase function at the N-terminal, which converts UDP glucnac to MANNAC, followed by the phosphorylation at the 6th position of the MANNAC, leading to the formation of MANNAC 6-phosphate by the kinase domain at the C-terminal. And if there are mutations, then this leads to the disease called GNE myopathy, because the further subsequent steps of sialic acid formation do not take place and the sialic acid is not synthesized. In general, the sialic acid then goes to the nucleus, gets activated by CMP sialic acid, and then transported into the Golgi. And through Cl transferases, these oligosaccharides, they get sialylated, and then they are transported to the cell membrane, or they come to the lysosomes where sialic acid is released and replenished back into the cytoplasm. So this is a whole cycle how sialic acid metabolism occurs, and these mutations, how do they affect the various parts of sialic acid metabolism. So my lab particularly, it started working on these rare diseases, and these were task was to identify how the mutations in GNE, does it affect only the sialic acid metabolism? Because sialic acid supplementation in the patients, it was only slowing down the disease progression. So the thought was, do the GNE protein affects other cellular function also, or is there any alternate roles that are being played by GNE, so that we can identify alternate drug targets and look for alternate drug molecules which could be beneficial in the long run. So we, with some of the literatures and some of the now recent studies from our lab, suggest that there are hypocellulation of glycoproteins, particularly our lab focused on beta-1 integrin and IGF-1R, and I'll tell you shortly why. Some of the literature studies suggested that there were problems associated with the cytoskeletal organization, and many of the cytoskeletal proteins were affected in the patients who were suffering with this disorder. So we thought that cytoskeletal pathway was one way to look, but we don't know how GNE affects the cytoskeletal function. And then apoptosis was also reported in the muscle biopsies, and where clinical data suggested that there was upregulation of some of these proteins, as well as apoptosis with protein aggregation in the form of autophagosome. And another area of research was mitochondrial dependent apoptosis that was observed in our lab in the cell-based models, and how we can utilize this understanding about the various pathomechanisms which are focusing on the cellular functions towards the therapeutic development. So today we are having some of the leads where we have the pathways identified and some of the molecules which may potentially help along with the sialic acid to go towards better leads. So we are now understanding these pathomechanisms and how these ring vacuoles are formed. So as I said that here the patient's number is very limited, and getting muscle biopsies is also a big challenge. So we had to first look for some cell-based models where we can base our studies and understand the pathomechanisms. So the first goal was we thought of easier because starting up lab in 2008. So we thought we will have a HK cell-based model where human embryonic kidney cells, HK, were having an overexpressed expression of the mutant GNE genes, which were pathologically relevant and observed in the world, where a majority of these mutations, we overexpress these proteins, and try to see the phenotype where we see there is a reduced epimerase activity, reduced epimerase kinase activity, which was supplemented, which could be recovered after supplementation with sialic acid. So we know that our system was working, and then after 2013 onwards, we set up some of the understanding with the Indian mutations. So we had the whole set of HK cell-based GNE overexpressing mutant cell lines where we could address our questions. But obviously, the question in front was not with the HEK cells because the physiology of the muscle cell is much different. So we were also parallelly working on skeletal muscle cell based model where we using homologous recombination via CEP technology, we were able to knock out one of the allele where GNE was removed. So GNE, one of the exon was removed at the epimerase region, and we could see that there was an heterozygous expression because homozygous expression was completely lethal, as it was observed with animal mouse model also. So here we have a cell line which we have now got patented where the we have an heterozygous expression, which is a very much reduced expression of GNE, almost nil, and we see a phenotype where cellular functions are affected so that we can understand the pathomechanism of the disease. Yeah.
Dr. Priya?
Yes.
I'm sorry to disrupt you, but you have to, come to an end, almost maybe another 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I'll quickly try to wind up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we looked at the cytoskeleton phenomenon pathomechanism starting with beta 1 integrin, and we found that this was hypocellular with the huge signaling cascade, but particularly the cofilin protein, which is involved in the actin polymerization. And actin dynamics is very tightly regulated because its function is also important for muscle. So we found that ROE was upregulated, but cofilin downregulated and altered the actin dynamics. And in the muscle cells, there was beautifully, we could see an alteration in the sarcomere, the actin organization. And in the cell line, these muscle cell lines, this was completely disrupted, so it can be used. Similarly, then we looked at the apoptosis phenomenon where we saw that you have an IGF-1R which is hypocellular, but when you add the IGF-1, then the apoptotic cell could shift the balance toward the survival. So the whole pathway, AKT pathway, BAD pathway, it was all shown that it was affected in the DNA deficient cell line. But when we are providing IGF-1, then the balance shifted towards the cell survival and the cells were surviving in a better way. So IGF-1 rescued the apoptotic DNA mutant cells, and the ER function that was affected due to the upregulation of chaperones could also be overcome by treating with IGF-1. So the whole ER stress function, which was also studied by the looking at the the ER oxidative stress, and we could see we had the tools where we can see that there was a paradigm shift in the oxidative nature of the reduced form of the ER, and all these papers are published, but the take home is that IGF-1 was helping in reducing the ER stress and apoptosis. Includingly, then interestingly we found that a chaperone HSP70 was interacting with GNE, and it was it was down regulated in these GNE deficient cells, and its activator BGP15, it was reducing the protein aggregation. And also interestingly, we have seen that the muscle atrophy with the changes in the muscle mass and atrophy markers was upregulated, and there were molecules which can now alter the muscle atrophy function. So in summary, what the effect of mutations that was saying that we have different Indian mutations, they all have different pathways that was affecting. And as I said, that even the patients with the same disease can have a different phenotype, and the drug development could focus in that aspect. So we have identified various mechanisms which are leading to autophagy, apoptosis, and cytoskeletal network as well as muscle atrophy that is being affected in these. And uh, and then what are the molecules? So BGP15 is affecting the chaperone function, IGF-1 is affecting the IGF-1R and the apoptosis function, and we have a cofilin molecule which is the CGA molecule, cholinergic acid, which is present in your diet also as a cofilin activator. And so you can have a regulation of the active this thing. In addition, as most of the pharmaceutical companies talk about the small molecules, so we are looking at the anti-diabetic products because we found BGP-15 is also an anti-diabetic product as a clinical trial. So repurposing of the drug works here, and BGP-15 could be a good target, which was then validated in muscle cell line, where we showed that we could recover the loss of effect in organization as well as the protein function. So now we are at a stage where we can test various small molecule effector molecules for all the assays in the cellular function to say which drug qualifies and which can be taken further for the animal studies. So I'll conclude here. Yeah, we will come.
You have to summarize, please. You have to
Yeah.
summarize.
Yeah, this is my last slide, sir. Conclusions, which is talking about the actin cytoskeleton apoptosis and ER stress with the down regulation of HSP17. And I would like to thank all the committee members and, of course, my lab students and research scholars and the financial assistance from various agencies. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any query? No, you're okay. So we will move to the next speaker. Next speaker is offline. So next speaker will be introduced by Dr. Rupal Bhadra. Hello. Our next speaker is Dr. Pulopasu Chaudhuri, and he will deliver the lecture Geospatial Variation of Airborne Particulate Induced Oxidative Stress and its Potential Health Impact in and around Kolkata, India. Dr. Chaudhuri is the Associate Professor and of the Department of the Environmental Science, University of Calcutta, and he is also the member of 39th Indian Expedition to Antarctica, Ministry of Earth Science, Government of India, and also recipients of the many awards that includes the Shastri Indo-Canadian Fellowship in 2018, then recipient of science academies like IISc, INSA, Vasi, Sabha Research Fellowship, etc. And he has total publication of more than 70, along with the 2 books and 13 book chapters. So his area of research is particularly focusing on the environmental biology and pollution management with special emphasis on mangrove ecology, bioprospecting, air pollution and climate change, green chemistry, geochemistry, geoinformatics, Arctic and Antarctic environment. With this short introduction, I invite Dr. Chaudhuri to speak on about his subject.
Hello. A very good evening to all. It's my privilege to be here and share some of our work, a part of our work, which is associated with toxicology. And thank you for the organizer for giving me this opportunity. Today, we will discuss about a geospatial variation of airborne particulates, which induce some oxidative stress, because my previous speaker told about a little bit about oxidative stress and how much it is potential for the health impact, which is happening in and around Kolkata. Because all of us, most of us are from Kolkata, and day by day we got exposure into this system. And I'm presenting one of my students' work, Praveen. He is here. So with this, I must say that air pollution is a curse for human civilization. Right now, yearly globally, 4.3 million deaths occur each year from the exposure, indoor exposure, and 3.7 million people are getting exposure from outdoor pollution. And it is known as the high cost to science. Air pollution is a high cost to science because in many ways, air pollution has been declared as disaster. Now, what's the scenario in India? If we look in this panel of polluted cities, where the classification, Kolkata is under the critically polluted cities, which is having particulate matter pollution more than 90 milligram per meter cube. And West Bengal is one of the most polluting states, having so many number of polluting cities, including Kolkata, Durgapur, Haldia, and others also. In reality, Kolkata is one of our country's highest air polluting city. Most of the day we are having, this is a real-time air quality monitoring scenario. Right now, with the help of NAP, we are having several automatic air monitoring stations. One of the stations is situated in our Calcutta University campus. So every day we can see, more or less it is nearly 150, 160. Sometimes, some days, today it was nearly 120 like that. But the National Green Tribunal, few years back, accused Kolkata and the industries near to Kolkata for a high amount of particulate pollution in Kolkata. So, one of our previous study with the particulate matter, we started a study how it is affecting on the plant life. And you can see, it is one of our published paper, that how the particulates are blocking the stomatus and affecting the plant life. And it is very much in Kolkata, and we studied only 4 roadside plants in that study. Now, we initiated a study, not very old work, it is the last 1 year we are trying to understand how the particulates are affecting human in many aspects, particularly when we inhale the things. 2 types of pollutants, one is gaseous pollutant and another is the particulate pollutants. So when we inhale the particulate pollutants, we all know about the harmful effect of gaseous pollutants like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide. But when we inhale particulate matters, itself it is having several impacts. It is blocking the alveoli, and there are some cases we know there are diseases like silicosis and asbestosis, like that type of disease which is associated with particulate pollutants. But nowadays there are several works are coming up which is associated with the oxidative stress which has been inducted by the particulate pollutants. And the particulate pollutants having some reactive oxygen species which is creating oxidative stress and inducing several type of lipid peroxidation and other type of stress induced phenomenon in human, and that are a major reason for several type of lung related diseases. I will come to that type of disease, particularly which are inducing several type of carcinoma in human. It is a very interesting work. The oxidative stress pathway of air pollution mediated toxicity is published in Redox Biology. I've cited this for these 2 diagrams, and in this work, preliminarily we are trying to focus estimation of the reactive oxygen species associated with particulate pollutants in around Kolkata. Try to understand whether it is having any health effect related to air pollution, but this is a large set of studies required to understand the mechanism of this, and we are trying to do mapping of the things, the spatio-temporal variation, so how it varies from space and time. That was studied by our team. Now, these are the study area. In the map, I have given the sampling sites. And in that particular area, we did two types of sampling. One sampling is the ambient sampling using a high volume sampler, and another sampling is the exposure sampling. Exposure sampling is when a people is exposed to air pollution, how much particulate is entering inside his body. That has been estimated by this type of sampler known as personal samplers. So these two samplers having different type of mechanisms, different type of filter papers, and different suction volume rates that I will come to later. The first one is the high volume sampler, and you can see this black region is nothing but the deposited particulate matter in 8 hours. 8 ঘন্টাতে এই কালারটা এরকম হয়েছে, and এই সাদাটা actually is the actual color of the filter paper. So you can take it as a control, and you can visualize how much pollutant we are inhaling. And the other thing is that this is the personal sampler. This is devastating things when personal samplers are getting much more particles, because we are exposing directly who is cooking or who is doing the iron in roadside things, or who is making kebabs in the shops. They are directly exposed to the particulate pollutants, and which is much more than the ambient ones. Upper portion is not coming. So analytic, we try to quantify the reactive oxygen stress using a assay method called ETT method, and it is a nearly most of us are accustomed with the ascorbic acid method, but ascorbic acid method, there is a technical problem. When doing in the laboratories, it is very difficult to control the experiment. In spite of ascorbic acid, we did this DTT method, tetranol method, using controlling PBS to control the experiment dynamics, and it is a optical method using this type of 96 wells using plate readers. Anyhow, this is giving us the variation of the reactive oxygen species present in particulate matter. Especially, we didn't do any separation. It is almost nearly 10 micron and above, 10 micron and below. So the particulate range, we couldn't do it with PM 2.5 or PM 1. It will give some other results also. We also do the gaseous analysis, because when people is getting exposure, they are also getting the gaseous exposure. So we are using this type of impingers for getting the gaseous pollutants. Along with gaseous pollutants, we also studied the water soluble inorganic ions, particularly which is associated with the filter paper. After sonication, we separated them, and particularly 3 ions we measured: the nitrate, ammonia, and sulfate. These 3 ions we measured, and we also studied the pollutant carrying the heavy metals like lead, nickel, copper, zinc. So along with the other pollutants, we studied these associated pollutants which are linked with the particulate matters. So this is a part of health related study. So we did the questionnaire survey and this type of exposure measurement. Exposure, you can see the person who is doing that work are carrying the sampler, and it is having a impinger which is representing his normal inhalation rate, and that entire particle are deposited into a filter paper kept inside the holder. So these are the some scenarios where we put the samplers. Sometimes we put some samplers near the stoves or near the workplace to get the direct exposure rate, and so we are comparing that how much effectively it is carried or how much effectively it is reduced in place to place. So this is roadside restaurants and eateries, and we also try to take hospital data. So in hospital, what are the lung related data reported in the particular area where we did the samplings. So finally, we tried to make a geospatial mapping using a MLR model to predict or to understand the vulnerability of this type of disease into the population of the study. So this is a general map, the geospatial map, where we can see the particulate pollution, particularly PM10, PM2.5, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide. And along with this, we are having the analysis of water-soluble inorganic ions, as because water-soluble inorganic ion is associated with the climatic factor, so the climatic parameters are also included in this map. And this is for others. We use this map for other studies also. And this is a very important thing, is that I have clubbed a big data into these 4 maps. This is a spatiotemporal variation of particulate associated reactive oxygen species. So in this map, you can see the reactive oxygen species action is variable into season to season. It is in summer, in winter, in autumn, and in spring. As we know, in winter, the effect of this is very worse. You can see from these big circles, and we have quantified this. This is the beauty of the geospatial distribution. We can use this type of analysis, spatial analysis, with these tools. Now, health-related questionnaire survey is giving some sensitivity index, which area people are most sensitive. That is a predictive model like things. But I will highlight with a very interesting thing. It was very difficult to work with because we required some methods of PFT methods where we can try to find out actual age versus the lung age versus biological age. That means we are finding that a people of age 24 having his lung age like 36. That is very important due to this type of stress. The lung age becoming more than their biological age. Now, the pollutants concentration analysis, which are related to different street food hubs, and we trying to find out the source, which are the major source of the roadside particulate matters from different things. So this from this heat map, we try to find get idea about the sources. That the health survey along with the hospital data is suggesting that this type of disease prevalence may be associated, but it requires some more studies also. That is, this type of carcinomas are increasing, maybe due to this type of activities. Because from the data we can see that rate of different type of 4 type of carcinoma has been reported for the last 2-3 years. Relative risk analysis, which is area specific. So health risk was analyzed. We have sample population in different areas of Kolkata, and we have some control population in Sundarban region. So we try to map the relative health risk here. And in conclusion, we are trying to this four season data and population sensitivity index. We try to find a sensitivity index summer, autumn, winter, and spring, and we are trying to make a comprehensive map of of these things. The observation suggests that population residing in Topshia, Mominpur, and Behala have higher chance of acquiring this type of respiratory disease in future. And in conclusion, and our take home is that this type of reactive oxygen species will be more. And we should take very careful about the exposure. Government is taking some initiative, and we are doing a project of state government where we are suggesting this type of air purifiers. We have already suggested the start positions or the location of the air purifiers where it can reduce the particulates which are responsible for this type of stress. And we always request the people staying in that vulnerable areas to use the mask, because mask is a very crude method but very effective method to get rid of this oxidizing stress associated with the particulate matters. And with this, I'm just ending my talk. And I must acknowledge Department of Higher Education, Science and Technology for providing the support for this particular work, spatiotemporal assessment of air quality and its health effects using geoinformatics, a case study from Kolkata. And thanks to the audience and the esteemed jury members for giving your patience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, for finishing in time. I think one or two short questions from the audience. If not, thank you for your excellent talk. Thank you. And the next speaker, I think our co-chair on announcement.
Dr. Chaudhary will be felicitated on behalf of 21st AICCG. Dr. Geeta Bhattacharya will be doing the honors. So please call the next speaker.
So our next speaker is Dr. Anuja Datta. He is a recipient of the prestigious SCRB Ramanujan Fellowship. He is working in Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. He is now a senior scientist and group leader at the Technical Research Center, School of Applied and Interdisciplinary Sciences, Cultivation of Science, Calcutta. Earlier, he spent considerable time in abroad. He was research assistant professor of the Department of Physics, South Florida, University of South Florida, USA, and then worked as a senior research fellow at the Department of Material Science and Metallurgy, University of Cambridge, UK. So now he is stationed in cultivation of science. Our research largely focuses on the synthesis and understanding of structure, property, functionality, application relationships of new device materials for a wide range of environment-friendly microenergy harvesting applications. Today, she will be talking on harvesting waste energies for flexible electronics. Dr. Anuja Datta, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, respected chair member, for giving the introduction. And my topic, what I'm presenting here, probably seems to be very misfit to the overall topic that the conference is focused on. But when I was approached by Professor Geeta Bhattacharya, I told her that it is probably not suitable. Then I thought like probably this is also a suitable area to discuss in the context of environment-friendly methods in terms of health and toxicogenomics, what we are also hearing from the morning. My area is something which not is directly related to the health, but it is somehow related to the health for the future. And as the name suggests, it is for harvesting energies from different areas for different electronics that you're all the time using. I'm using this mic also, so it has also electronics. So in future, discarding this electronics is a big step. So many of us are using these flexible things. So some point of time we have to face that we are keeping up with the parts of the electronics, and those are also creating pollutants which are adding to the environment. So in that context, I'll be giving some overview because I feel that broadly the audience is in the biology and environmental science background. So I'm from ISS, which is actually the hub of basic fundamental science, but at the same time, it is currently developing some research areas which are for practical applications directly. And ISS is also the only institute that India has produced the with prize. That was long time back, 1930, for the discovery of Raman effect by Sir C.V. Raman. So having said that, let me first go back to the basic things of environmental sustainability. All these areas of discussion also probably started to build up more when the Sustainable Development Goals were put forward in 2015, where this 17 goals were mostly important. But what is important here that I wanted to show is like goal number 6 and 7. Goal number 6 is on clean water and sanitation. Goal number 3 is also good health and well-being. But goal number 7 is on affordable and clean energy. So 6 and 7, they are put forward separately. The numbers are separate, but they are so much interconnected. So when I'm talking about clean water and sanitation, obviously that needs the technology here, which makes it cleaner and more sanitation friendly. So in that sense, affordable and clean energy to everyone will also make sure that you are using clean water in very sustainable way, in more methodical way. So having said that and put forward that point of view, I would just go to the energy factor here. So obviously we are talking about, whenever we're talking about energy harvesting, we are talking about self-powered energy here. So self-powered energy can go from smaller range in the power factor. If I'm talking about the electrical energy, so it's in the power of the watts. So from the nanowatts to even terawatts. Terawatts is where the wind energy, solar energy is focused on, where whatever energy that we're using in this hall also goes into the area of this megawatt level. But another area is very rapidly developing in the areas of health monitoring device, environmental monitoring devices are in the area of micro energies, where the devices, the technologies have to be smaller and smaller. They have to be cleaner. They have to be disposable. They're called transient electronics. Transient electronics is something what you're using. They don't have a lifetime of 100 years. They have a lifetime of few days maybe. But that's probably what you need for the electronics. Then it will self-dissolve. So that kind of parts, what is the future electronics requires, so that we can take care of the heap of the lithium-ion batteries that we are putting more and more. And then we are talking about how these heavy metals are mixing in the ground. That's also coming from the electronics, the parts that we're using. So a part of it, we are also responsible for misusing of our resources, and we are rapidly destroying the soil and the groundwater because of this process as well. So if I taking care of the self-powered electronics, making them electronics which are taking the energy from our environment, I will, a part of it, I can solve the problem for here. So what is micro energy harvesting? As the name suggests, is micro. Means like the energy that we get from our surrounding should be smaller. It's not like, as I said, solar energy, hydropower, wind energy, not that scale. It is something what you can scavenge, but it's called waste. Like heat energy from our body is wasted. I'm talking the vibration energy is wasted. That I'm running, if someone is running and walking, the mechanical energy is wasted. So can we utilize those energy, convert them into usable power to run the electronics that we are carrying with us? so that we don't need the batteries to be in there, so that there is no chance of getting, recycling of that battery. So that is something what future electronics is looking into, because the key drives for the innovation is that our electronics are becoming smaller and smaller. Something that has to be implanted in your body doesn't need to be a size of a laptop, it is a size of a chip. So if you have to power that chip, you need micro energies for that. And future needs micro energies, as we are also heading towards smart city goals, where the wireless nodes such as Internet of Things devices are there. They have to talk between each other wirelessly. So they have to powered by wireless things, wireless wires, means like there has to be powered by self-powered technology. So different companies like Tata, Siemens, Reliance, they've already taken a lot of initiative in in the R&D sector of this microenergy, and the directions of scavenging these microenergies from our environment for our future devices, for our future electronics, are in two directions. One is when you're using non-toxic earth elements-based materials for making those electronics. Secondly, if I want to make them flexible so that I can implant them in my body, so that it has to be bioresorbable, shape conformable, then I need organic materials. So lead-free, non-toxic ceramics. Then the second one is the flexible organic materials. So these two are the areas where I am also interested in, where my research group is largely focusing on. So my group is comprised of several of PhD students who are from both physics and chemistry backgrounds. One thing to understand that where are these common waste sources from microenergy harvesting we are looking for. So they're categorized wise, we can make them 4 different parts. One is where we can excavate or scavenge the vibration energy. Second is the thermal energy. Third one is the indoor lights. So indoor lights, not the solar photovoltaics I'm talking about, because I don't want to generate here a watt level or huge amount of power. So I need small amount of power, my small electronics. So indoor lights are enough. Then radio frequencies. Radio frequencies, what we get from your mobile devices, that you are using your mobile devices, they're constantly emitting radio frequencies. Those can also be tracked, because from the first law of thermodynamics, we know that the energy will convert from one form to the other. So if you can kind of trap that form of energy through a process, what is called energy harvesting, using transducers. So transducers are the materials that will convert one form of energy to the other. Then we are all set to the goal of this self-powered electronics. Then in the this area, I'll be mostly talking about 2 different areas. One is called thermoelectrics, where your thermal energies will be scavenged. Second one is the piezoelectrics, from which the mechanical energies have to be scavenged. So this, just like a practical application of this is shown, that is a tunnel subway in the London. They use this piezoelectric chambers or piezoelectric cells on the ground of the underground. The undergrounds are mostly dark, but when the people are walking through it, they generate enough energy to power up the lights which are in the subway. So we are powering up the light in the subway from our motions only. So that is self-powered. We are not using the power from the electricity lines. So that's just a practical application of it. And thermoelectric is also something that I will show very soon. So as I said, that mechanical energy can be utilized if I can utilize properly the vibrations from our surrounding. And these can be easily done for different environmental monitoring also. For example, a lot of work is going on in using the piezoelectric materials as thin films, in the tides, like underground, where these leaves actually, piezoelectric leaves, as the tides are coming, they vibrate with the tidal force. So when it vibrates, it generates energy. So with the tidal force only, it can generate energy. So that concept is now well established and people are using it. Piezo trees are also something, because the wind, the trees, actually the leaves are always moving because of the wind. So there is a vibration, a mechanical force that the trees, branches, and these leaves will get, that it will convert it into electricity. I will not go into the depth of how the mechanism, the physical mechanism, that how it converts mechanical force into electricity, because this thing is a little bit of more depth into the physics and mechanical energy engineering. But the point is that this kind of materials can be easily used for environmental monitoring as well as capturing the environmental energy. Similar kind of thing, these piezoelectric materials have been also proposed to be used in water remediation. For example, they are charged particles. Piezoelectric materials are charged particles where we have positive and negative charges both. So if we can actually catalyze it, so using it as a piezo catalysis, then we can use them for trapping different arsenic 3+ and 4+ and molecules, larger molecules, so that we can actually separate them out of the water. So for water remediations for heavy metal ions, this piezo-catalysis now is routinely done using the piezoelectric effect. So this is something like long-term goals of piezoelectric materials, not just for energy applications, but for different environmental other applications. Now, another material or another kind of thing that my group is also working, the basic applications I'll be showing is a thermoelectric material where we use the heat gradient or the temperature gradient wherever it is applicable. It's like I have, my skin is warm, outside the AC is running, it's cold, so we have a temperature difference there. Using the temperature difference, this particular material converts it into electricity that is now used in thermoelectric watches. Seco has thermoelectric watches. So similar kind of waste thermal energies can be captured from different kind of places, such as automobile exhaust, where there is a huge loss of your heat from the burning of the petroleum, because only 30-20% converts into energy, means the power of the car. The 80% actually is wasted as heat. So can we convert it into electricity, so that using that electricity we can run the parts of the car or electronics in the car itself? It can be done. So now a part of the work for last 5-6 years are going in that direction, and we are also working at the direction profusely. Another good thing is that this kind of material can also be again used for environmental remediation and water splitting and different kind of water heavy metal scavenging or heavy metal collection by just using the both thermoelectric materials as well as solar photovoltaics together. We can do that. So that's the kind of a design people always do, different mix and match kind of a thing to be used in different purposes. Now coming to the conformable flexible electronics. Now for now we know, I have the examples that I have shown. Obviously not everywhere we need something which is a flat surface, or whatever it's going to be implanted in my body. If I have to fix it on my heart, the heart is not flat. So something has to be flexible, something has to be bendable, something has to be very soft enough. So there comes the shape conformable and flexible electronics area, where this energy harvesting material, such as using this mechanical forces or piezoelectrics, the thermal energy gradient as thermoelectrics can be routinely now checked whether they can be used for different kind of medical equipment. For example, thermoelectric materials are used in echocardiograms a lot, because echocardiograms, ECG machines and pulse monitors are routinely carried by different patients. Those, if self-powered, that can be easily delivered and the patient's life will be much easier. So in those areas also thermoelectric materials and modules are used to power them routinely. So these are something which are finding a lot of use in our day-to-day life. So with these examples, I come just very shortly what we do in our lab in these 4 areas. So one is the thermoelectric energy harvesting in the flexible areas. So we're trying to make flexible thermoelectrics. Secondly is this piezoelectric materials, using them and synthesizing them, making these devices for different kind of biosensors. Then indoor photovoltaics, using them for different light energy harvesting. These are the main three themes that we are working on. And for last 2-3 years, these are our publications from our group. In 2-3 slides, I'll just fast go with the thermoelectric area that we are doing. So as I mentioned, that the thermoelectric modules we used in different kind of electronics, exhaust, those are mostly like a very sturdy material. So it's very much needed that we make it flexible. So for last 2 years, my group is looking into using papers as the flexible substrate. So paper is obviously made of cellulose. They are much more biodegradable as compared to the parts that a regular thermoelectric module is. It has to be cheaper as well, because if you have to make a technology much more advanced and widely spread, then it has to be much cheaper. So in that direction, we are making devices from the materials which are already been in the market, and also preparing our own materials and then clubbing them into devices in the flexible pattern. So those two directions we are working on, so transitioning 3D geometry to the 2D thermoelectric geometry. I will not go into the detail. We do several characterizations such as physical properties measurements from the current and voltage graphs. We check the device compatibility, and we also do device testings to see that how much it is flexible and how much it is sturdy. Because if I'm using it somewhere, I'm not using it for 1 hour. I have to use it for a few days at least. So those testings we routinely do in our lab. And finally, we prepare the device through different kind of computational mechanisms is also there. We check through the experimental facilities to find that how much sturdy and how much unique the device is. So this is just to show that recently we have done, for example, a copper vest, which has not been was not available as thermoelectric material before. Just a copper-based, very water-soluble thermoelectric material. We just painted it on a paper and we attached them with a copper tape. Copper tape you can get anywhere. The total device cost was less than 100 rupees, whereas like the thermoelectric module is more than like 1,000 rupees a module itself that they use in the industry. So that kind of very much easily accessible kind of a device was shown that they can scavenge heat from anywhere. So this was, for example, placed on a bike. The bikes, it was just starting. So, and we can see that the voltage is a multimeter. The voltage actually, maybe it didn't work out or that. Okay, yeah. So voltage is increasing. Means like just from this voltage is getting from the heat exhaust of the bike itself. So basically, this kind of material can be used anywhere where your temperature difference is. It can be used as like a wristband. It can be used at the back of your laptop where this heat are basically wasted completely. And you can use it, you can store it in a capacitor, you can use it for small electronics as a battery. So these are something that we are rapidly using. Another thing that I will not again go into too much detail is organic molecules, because another area of research is making flexible soft matter. So we are working on donor acceptor based copolymer materials, where they show like both the positive and the negative, because we are using both donor and acceptor molecules. So since it has positive and the negative ions, they can have polarization. So the polarization can be used for different kind of applications such as piezoelectrics, because in a piezoelectric material you should have a polar material, you should have polar material, you should have polarization. That should be, when you do a mechanical pressure, this polar group means positive and negative, they should separate out, and the negative one will go into the circuit, will give you the electricity. So from this concept, you can make like a piezoelectric device. This piezoelectric device is made here, what is shown on the aluminum foil. We took a baking foil. This baking foil, what you regularly use, we just painted the organic molecule on top of that, placed another baking molecule foil on top of that. So it's actually very flexible. You can just scramble it. So that kind of a flexible device, when under very much of mechanical pressure. So as I'm walking, that is also mechanical pressure. So under mechanical pressure, we are giving us voltage and the current. So that's because, yes, I'll be finishing. So we use that for like a pulse sensor on the wrist, because this is a cardiac pulse that we get on the wrist that has its own vibration. So you can use it as a sensor also, which is a biosensor kind of thing. So with these, I will just finish. I know this is kind of a very off topic from what we are learning in the morning, but it is just to show that environmental science is just not about direct applications. To find something which will have applications in the future also, and that the electronics part is not to be neglected. So my group is highly to be acknowledged. All this work, obviously the basic load is the group is taking. The funding from the SERB and the DST, definitely they have to be acknowledged. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take any questions if you have any.
It's a very interesting topic. This waste of energies, can be used for in future direction. Where is your?
Yes, please. I'll be happy.
Probably it's a very nice question, but in one of your slides you said that one of the sources that you are going to utilize is paper.
Not sources, yes. The material, yes.
So, is there a variation in the cellulose content that you are looking for, or are you looking for a uniform?
We are looking for currently as a uniform flat surface just for a substrate itself, so that the material, when you're making a film, basically the material requirement of the thermoelectric material is very low. That's we are coming down, and also the paper can be easily discarded and recycled. So that way we are looking into that. But the cellulose contents is also something that we are doing in another world. Definitely, definitely we are doing it. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Thank you so much. Yes, sure.
Wonderful talk. I want to know for this type of in our generation, special type of devices or normal devices.
So I have not shown the, maybe in one of the slides I did show this is general architecture. So basically, when if you're using a piezoelectric material, so the vibrations are normally up and down. They are like AC field. So the power it generates is like AC power. So that has to be converted into DC and then stored properly and then used. The material there we are using is piezoelectric material. But when you want
our devices, we use that.
Yes, that's called a transducer. What converts one form of energy to the other. So when you are converting mechanical energy, we are using piezoelectric material as a transducer material. The device is a capacitor device, basically. Capacitor structured device.
We will now felicitate the speaker and the chairs as well. So would you please come to the middle of the stage?
Thank you. Thank you all the speakers for excellent.
Yeah, first I think we should felicitate the speaker.
Dr. Pritha Bhattacharjee would felicitate the presenter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you are here till the end. I'm so happy.
Thank
So
you.
for our
Nice presentations. Yeah.
for our arsenic project, we need you as our advisor. You and Abhijit. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And whenever you come to Kolkata, please tell us.
Nishchay,
We will meet.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pritha, where is Pritha? Pritha will say thank you to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prasanda.
Excellent
Thank you
presentations.
so much. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your
Thank you.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.